Are you also tired of one-size-fits-all weight loss plans? Meet Noom, the personalized solution that meets you where you are. Noom is able to understand your unique needs, from dietary restrictions to medical concerns. Unlike restrictive programs, Noom embraces your lifestyle and choices. Discover a sustainable approach to weight loss, tailored just for you. Honestly, Noom felt like it was made for me. It's not just about what I eat, it's about understanding why. With Noom, I've learned so much about myself and built healthier habits that stick. It's all about progress, not perfection. Say goodbye to restrictive diets and experience the Noom app for yourself with personalized lessons and expert coaching. Noom's psychology and biology-based approach has helped over 5.2 million people achieve their goals. Stay focused on what's important to you with Noom's psychology and biology-based approach. Sign up for your trial today at Noom.com. That's Noom.com. And check out Noom's first ever cookbook, The Noom Kitchen, for 100 healthy and delicious recipes to promote better living. Available to buy now wherever books are sold.
This podcast is brought to you by Patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Head there to check out exclusive podcasts like Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, and tons more.
I heartily endorse this event or product.
Ahoy hoy everybody, and welcome to Talking Simpsons, brought to you by Big Red Snack Foam. I'm your host, the meanie beanie faux fienie Bob Mackey, and this is our chronological exploration of The Simpsons. Who is here with me today as always?
It's Henry Gilbert, and the podcast is going to Mars.
And who do we have on the line?
I'm Libby Watson, and I'm known as America's Sorrow.
And this week's episode is Sweets and Sour Marge.
If I don't want them for free, why would I want to pay for them?
Why do you always wait till we arrive to complain?
I don't know.
This week's episode originally aired on January 20th, 2002, and as always, Henry will tell us what happened on this mythical day in real world history.
Oh boy, Bobby, A Beautiful Mind and Moulin Rouge win big at the Golden Globes. The Daria series finale airs, and Parappa the Rappa 2 is released on the PlayStation 2 in the United States.
So we're post 9/11, and two tragedies came to my life. Daria comes to an end, and the new Parappa game is not good.
It's all right.
Not very good. It killed the series.
Sure, it did.
Yeah.
I like all the songs about noodles, like, the noodle invasion thing. It's a cute idea.
Slurp it, suck it. We all like it.
Yes, that's the line. Slurp it, suck it. We all like it about noodles.
You weren't memorizing Parappa 2 lyrics when you were 20 like me?
I just like the dorky nerd going like, but everyone loves noodles, noodles. It starts on a bad note, though, that you're just excited to see your old pal Chop Chop Master Onion again, and he's like an unhoused man, and he's just very poor and sad. It's kind of depressing that he's lost his home.
He's got the little sprout growing out of his head because he's just an old onion.
Yes, yeah. But, that was Is It College Yet? Is the Daria series finale movie.
It was weird for me to watch Daria after high school because it started in my freshman year of high school, so it was like, the perfect show for me. And then after I graduated, I stopped watching because I didn't want to be reminded of high school. So maybe 10 years later, I did a Daria rewatch and finally saw everything again. It had a great finale, and I think it hasn't been canceled. The Daria reboot, that's not actually about Daria. It's about Jody, her friend.
I don't know.
It feels like no one has just made the announcement that it's been canceled, but I haven't seen anything about it. Libby, do you have any Daria knowledge or Daria fandom going on in your life?
Oh yeah, I did watch it a bit. It was on MTV2 in the UK, which was like, I think in the UK MTV2 was like the alternative one that played all the indie music and stuff. So that was where I watched like the Strokes music videos and stuff, and they would also play episodes of Daria, and I absolutely loved it. I never watched it like in any kind of like order order or anything like that. But yeah, I was exactly the kind. I mean, I would have been like 13 when I was watching it, so I was very much like, yeah, this is absolutely me. I'm really cool like Daria.
And I guess if she graduated high school in 2002, then she'd be like 37, 38 now, that Daria Morgendorffer. Yep. Yeah. The Beavis and Butthead, their new movie just came out. Bob and I have not watched it yet at the time of this recording, but Daria, not as lively as Beavis and Butthead at this moment.
No, we're still, it's one of the few 90s reboots that haven't happened yet. Daria, Duckman, a few
Duckman,
others. I mean, like Rugrats, everything's coming back.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we have Oscars news as well.
Well, it's
nomination.
Oscar fever's beginning, Bob, because it's the Golden Globes, the
okay.
road to the Oscars. And yeah, the winner for Best Drama was Beautiful Mind, A Beautiful Mind. And Best Comedy / Musical was Moulin Rouge, which one performs much better than the other at the Oscars.
I see.
That was where Russell Crowe finally won that Best Actor thing for playing a guy with mental problems, which was easy. If you had some mental issue, but you can't go all the way with it, as a line I won't say from Tropic Thunder is all about that. But
ooh, what a challenging role.
Yes, yeah.
Oh my God, Moulin Rouge. I had not seen it until...
You and your wife hate on Moulin Rouge quite a lot.
Until months ago. It's just, I mean, I feel like an old man complaining about like MTV-style editing, but I swear to God, there's like a cut in that movie every 6 frames. I felt bad for the editor for all the work they put into that movie, but... I would say I love musicals. I'm not the biggest musical fan, but I love certain ones. I just saw Little Shop of Horrors performed in Berkeley. This is excruciating. It's embarrassing. I don't like it.
I still like it. I still like it. It's not. Look, I like a more classical style musical like the Chicago film adaptation that came out around the same time. I like that more, but I like how sweaty and over the top Moulin Rouge is and hideous.
You like burlesque shows, I bet.
Burlesque shows are strip shows made for gay men.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yes.
Sorry, I'm too straight. Can't do it.
I think I am too. I have absolutely no understanding of what it is that people like about musicals. I feel like it's like a part of my brain that's missing. It's one of those things I totally respect that other people like them, but I just don't see myself ever enjoying a musical. Even when I was a kid, went to a couple and I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Everybody was in 2002. Weren't we all singing along to the Lady Marmalade cover? That was all the hits.
Oh God.
Yes. Yeah. Nope.
Yeah, that was on the radio a lot. Definitely had friends that liked that, and again, I just felt like it just sort of washed over me.
I think they play that song for about 10 seconds in the actual film.
Yeah.
It's not really like a music moment.
And he just made his new Elvis movie with Tom Hanks in a fat suit.
That's right. That was the Elvis movie that gave him COVID, wasn't it? That was because they filmed it in Australia, and he got that's where he announced it.
Well, he was in Australia. Okay,
that's right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the movie that almost killed Tom Hanks.
That alerted the world to the dangers, America to the dangers of COVID. Anywho,
yes,
that's what happened into the early 2002 when this episode aired.
Joining us today once again is Libby Watson, who was last with us for the very weird episode Old Money. This is a much funnier but also weird episode. Welcome back to the show, Libby.
Hello. Thank you for having me back. I'm very glad to be here.
And Libby, you everybody I'm sure knows that you're the journalist of healthcare politics and the great newsletter Sick Note. And I thought this would be a good episode too, because this certainly is about like the politicization of health in America in a certain way, about political diet movements. Though I believe this came from the inspiration of like suing tobacco companies, but this certainly then echoes with the later aughts, the beginning of that, of the battle against big sugar and the politicization of that.
Yeah, it does feel like a sort of interesting time capsule in a way. Obviously you're right that this kind of like came back a little bit in the early 2010s. But it's funny because like it is about healthcare, but it's really not about it's about a health issue without being about healthcare, which I think is very telling. Not seeing obesity or diabetes or whatever as something that can be really managed with a healthcare system, and it's solely down to people's individual choices and, sort of personal moral failings, is a very American way, I would say, of looking at those problems.
Actually, the writer of the episode, Karen Lomine, we interviewed her a few years ago. I think it was a few years ago. It feels like a few years ago, but Henry's cocking his head. He doesn't know either.
It was definitely, I think it was 2020.
Yes, you can find it on our Patreon, patreon.com/talkingsimpsons. She came up with this idea because I believe the late 90s, there were a lot of tobacco lawsuits going around. She didn't cite which one she based this episode off of, but she got the idea because smokers were suing tobacco companies, and the idea was, well, isn't that kind of silly?
Yeah, take some personal responsibility for yourself. They didn't make you smoke cigarettes or whatever.
And a few years before this episode, and probably like a year before it was written, there was like a landmark massive civil lawsuits against big tobacco from our government. It started with some states in the mid-90s, but our government was like, it wasn't for the sake of, the public health or anything. It was like, we're sick of paying for all of these Medicaid payments for cancer. These cancer patients are bleeding us dry. You got to take care of them, tobacco companies. So that's where all this came from. You can read about it online. There's very, very long articles about all this legislation. But because of this, tobacco companies now fund anti-tobacco campaigns like the Truth Initiative, things like that. And also, this is what caused cigarette prices to increase. There have been many, many class action suits against tobacco companies, so I'm not sure which one she was looking at, but it was all happening around this time. But yeah, this was a very victim-blamey time, and I know it still is. This was a very anti-lawyer time. Every lawsuit was viewed as frivolous, and that's why the most frivolous ones get reported on the most. But yeah, that's what's going on here. And I'm sorry, Libby, I heard you trying to jump in.
No, not at all. It was just funny watching this because I literally just last week or something watched The Insider for the first time with Russell Crowe, which is about big tobacco, and there is a line in this episode that is directly from that movie. I mean, shamefully, that is like pretty much the extent of my knowledge about this. But yeah, the lawsuits in that movie are, specifically like, Mississippi is suing big tobacco because of Medicaid costs, and it's just so funny because like that is the closest that a conservative southern state could get to doing anything about public health. Is like, hey, you're making us pay for all these poor people's damn cancer, and we don't want to do that. I mean, it really is kind of wild.
Yeah, it's I get why it was very easy to fall into that way of thinking back then. I don't want to be victim blaming myself on the writers of the episode, because it was how everybody thought back then. Like, oh, everybody's suing everybody because it's somebody else's fault. But like, the tobacco companies, for one, lied about the dangers of tobacco for decades. Like, they knew it and kept it out of so. They actually did trick people into getting cancer like that, and they should be sued for that. On that level, it can't. There isn't personal responsibility there.
Yeah, and we're coming up on the era when the show came out of Super Size Me, and of course, every smartass comedian was like, "Really, McDonald's makes you fat? Oh, you need a documentary to tell me this?" Things like that. But it's because of using the law to nag in our communist state of California. When you go to a fast food restaurant, it says this burger has 900 calories, and you think, maybe I don't want to eat that many calories, and you make a wiser decision. And it's because of all the Marge Simpsons of the world.
Right, exactly. I mean, I don't know how much we want to get into this now, but I mean, you are absolutely right that like seeing calories on a menu, I mean, certainly for me, it does sometimes make me make slightly better choices. Certainly I make better choices having that information than not having that information, as much as I hate being reminded of what it is I'm about to do to my body. But I mean, it's to me at least, it is really not the issue for why, to me, America, even if you just drive across America, especially like most of America, not the cities that I have lived in, but like most of the country, it is just so obvious that the entire country is structured in a way that makes it very easy, cheap, and often the only option to eat fast food. To go to a drive-through and get French fries and, get a 64-ounce soda or whatever. And there are a lot of places where that is not even, is sometimes literally the only option. But it is also just so much harder to eat healthy food. Like, people always say, oh, you can always make your own healthy, cheap food at home or whatever. And I'm like, first of all, that shit sucks. I hate chopping vegetables. You really want me to spend my whole I made dinner the other night and I was just thinking God damn, I've been chopping vegetables for half an hour and I'm just making one fucking stir fry and I have just been slicing this goddamn bok choy for this whole time. Anyway, it is just simply harder to eat healthy food. And even now, after all the supersize me stuff and fast food restaurants putting these shitty little salads on their menus and stuff, the structure of American, society in general, with the focus on work and everything, but also, food culture, it is simply harder to eat healthier, especially if you are, on the go or, if you have to, for example, work for a living, it is just harder to, if I'm out and about and I'm like, all right, I want to get a snack, but I don't want to eat something really bad. Even in LA, I'm like, okay, well, I can pay $20, literally $20 or $15 for a salad, or I can get something that will cost $3 and is, laden with fat and salt and sugar and all the stuff that tastes good. I think this is the sort of fallacy behind the whole you could simply choose not to do X, Y, Z or whatever. It's I can still make that choice, but there is so much around me that is pushing me to make the worst choice, and then to just completely ignore that stuff, it's just a very strange way to look at things. To me.
I mean, that's so perfectly American that the structure is just ignored, and it just comes down to you. The structure, you are a free individual that could do whatever you want, right? But it's it's not considered. You have depressed wages. You have to work 2 jobs. Let alone you're raising any children, perhaps. And how
right. Yeah. Well, and the other thing to me is if you think about the food science that goes into producing these products, when I eat a cheeseburger from McDonald's or whatever, I'm aware that the food is not high quality, and yet most of the time you can just feel the pleasure centers in your brain exploding, and you crave these things that are, I'm craving these nuggets that I know are made of pink slime. They are made of chicken adjacent parts that have been spun in a centrifuge and then, compressed into something that looks like it came from a chicken once. And I know that it doesn't even actually taste that good when I'm eating it, and yet I still find myself craving it. And there is so much there are, billions of dollars poured into creating these products on these national fast food chains, and they specifically create these products and recipes that enhance the number of these pleasure center activating ingredients, not to make food that is good, but to make your brain go, this is good. And that is so, and so you have this whole system that is set up to trick your brain. And then at the same time, you have people saying, well, you should just simply not eat that stuff. And yet you just have this incredibly powerful science behind these products that make them taste good, even if they're bad for you. And it's okay, so you've made this thing that is a drug, and then you've yelled at me, and you've made it incredibly cheap and available everywhere, and you've made it hard to get stuff that is better, and then you're yelling at me for eating it? Come on.
Yeah, and you're also basically conditioned from birth to want these things. I feel only kids born in the past 20 years came into a world where nutrition and eating healthy was a mainstream idea, not tofu and wheatgrass, not anything like that. Because Henry and myself, I'm sure it was the same for you, Henry. A school lunch for all the kids in my class was okay, number 1, can of soda. Soda's unhealthy. Maybe some kids have a can of fruit juice with more sugar than the Coca-Cola. Also, peanut butter and jelly on white bread, which is just cake. And then chips. And oh boy, we need a snack in here too. We need something a little treat, some cookies in there, and maybe an apple you can throw away. But it was
and a bag of chips for all that
a bag of chips,
salt and starch.
Don't forget the salt. But and then if you wanted to buy a hot lunch in school, it was always the saltiest, most deep fried things that were frozen 5 years ago and shipped to your class.
Yes.
And I feel
even in the UK.
Yeah.
Even in the UK, I don't know if you know much about Jamie Oliver. His whole thing is screaming at schools, and then also poor mothers basically for not feeding their kids better stuff. And so, while I was at school, the cafeteria at my school kind of underwent a change where they started selling things that were not, deep fried. But, for the first 4 years I was there, the food that you could get at the cafeteria was a cheeseburger that was £1. There's something that is, I think, only exists in the UK, which is called a turkey Twizzler, which is like turkey formed into like a curly fry shape and breaded and fried.
It's like a Slim Jim almost a little bit, right?
Well, it's like
no.
it's more like a Burger King chicken fry, but in a curly fry shape. And yeah,
Okay.
they were like 60p or something, and donuts, and that was the stuff you could buy from the cafeteria, and like it was disgusting.
Well, the Jamie Olivers of the world, or I don't want to be too negative because, like, I can see that their hearts, in a way, are in the right place because they see children making unhealthy choices that will follow them for the rest of their lives. Like, if I could find younger me and tell him, don't put so much like emotional investment in Happy Meals, I think I'd be a happier person. But and also, I know when I eat garbage, like, yes, part of me is making a choice to eat garbage, and I try to make that choice less these days. But optically, having extremely rich people like Jamie Oliver or, say, Michael Bloomberg yelling at you about you need to make better choices, like, how can it not look like just like a rich asshole trying to take away one of the few things that's nice in the world that gives you any comfort in this shitty world?
Right.
Like,
yeah, I mean, there is kind of a what do you want me to do about it thing, but I was kind of thinking, like, it's sort of like the idea is that you need to make the right choice, and it's sort of like you're trying to throw a ball through a hoop or something, but they keep making the hoop smaller and smaller and smaller until they're still telling you, why can't you get it through the hoop? Why can't you get it through the hoop? But your ability to make that choice is shrunk and shrunk and shrunk until you have to be like perfect all the time. You have to be perfect a lot to not get that wrong. Like I was saying earlier, it's hard to find these food. The market certainly has not provided, even though it's better than it was 10, 20 years ago. Even just something like flavored seltzer being more common now is huge, because you can get a LaCroix in some bodegas and like gas stations and stuff. You can get more interesting non-sugar drinks, but it's still hard. It's still not easy to make that choice. And that's just with drinks. So, when it comes to food, it is really hard because it's like, okay, I'm at the gas station. I can eat this like fried thing that will at least activate the like crunch and salt center in my brain. Or I can eat this like, single peeled boiled egg that may have been there for 2 weeks, or this like, like already brown apple, or like some kind of like horrifying like vegetable sludge that has been there a long time. It's still not, the market is still not providing, I would say.
And one last preamble question I have for you, Libby, is I've heard this from a number of British people when they come over here, like American particularly, like obviously sugar and candy and cereals, like those are there, but I always hear like, wow, America, you really love sugar, like, and that you can see just how much we have sugar in everything here.
Yeah, I do think so. I think living here has kind of changed my palate a little bit, because when I go home and I eat the food, I'm like, God damn, this is really bad. And that is true. British food is bad. But I also do think that I have come to expect more salt and sugar and stuff. Like, my palate has changed, and now portions feel smaller in the UK to an extent, although I think we also eat plenty as well. Things taste flavorless that didn't taste flavorless when I was younger, and I think that is partly because I've come to expect the heightened salt and sugar and stuff. So yeah, there is that. The availability of extremely large soda is something that is different in the US. The first
With
time
free refills too.
yeah, oh my god, free refills. I mean, free refills for sure is like one of those things where I was like, oh my god, this country is amazing, which is really fucking sad. Does not speak well to my personality. But I remember the first time I went to a movie theater in the US, and I ordered like a medium soda, and it was it felt fucking gigantic, because it was like, the size, it was certainly the size of like an extra large soda in the UK. Stuff like a big gulp, it's just not so common. It's not quite so. And that's not to say that, if you go into Tesco's, you're not going to see rows and rows of different sodas. We're not that different. But I would definitely say that there is. I mean, it's weird because we have the best like candy. Like, Britain has better chocolate and stuff than
I had an imported Cadbury cream egg once, and it ruined American Cadbury cream eggs for me after.
Yes.
Too sweet.
Even now that that Cadbury is owned by an American company, it is still still better. And I did write an article about this a couple of years ago, actually, and it's to do with, you can buy the American version of Cadbury here, but it's worse for some reason. And I think the justification was that it was closer to the taste of chocolate that Americans were like used to or would expect, which I think is weird, because I feel like if you sold just the regular Cadbury here, people would go nuts for it, but whatever. But yeah, it is strange, because we do have really good, candy and biscuits as well. Like cookies are really top cookies over there. And so it's not like you can't get a lot of delicious sugar stuff there. And you have to remember that Britain is kind of the America of Europe. Like we are when it comes to most things, like, I don't know, like incarceration rates or like crumbling healthcare and bad education and stuff. Like we are more like America than anywhere else in Europe, but we are still not America. So you kind of have to bear that in mind.
We should start talking about the show soon.
Yes.
But because this is about sugar addiction, one thing that I've noticed in my life as a child and adult is that it took people a long time to realize that soda could make you fat. Like, they would think, yeah, if I eat too much fried chicken or cake or chocolate, but I think it takes people a while to get over to the idea like, a drink can make me fat.
Yes.
And you look at like those scare articles that are like, what are the most caloric things you can get? And it's like the Dunkin' Donuts Moo Latte or something like that. And people will get, a Frappuccino every day at Starbucks, not thinking like, I'm starting my day with 900 calories and most of it is sugar. So I think like, when you watch like weight loss shows, that's the first thing they zero in on. It's like, you have to stop drinking soda. And it's just because, like you said, Libby, soda is so cheap and plentiful in America. You get people who never have anything else, and they grow up thinking like, I don't like the taste of water, which is just like a rejection of your status as a living thing. Like, ew, water, the thing that I'm made of and I need to live. No way, get that out of my body.
Yeah,
so
yeah, absolutely. In the UK, like, I would definitely remember drinking a lot of soda as a child. In fact, I used to have a very specific memory of my stepmom yelling at me because I wanted to drink a Coke on Christmas morning, and I was like, come on, it's Christmas. It was pretty normal for me to drink Coke throughout the day. But a normal thing for British children to drink is something that we call squash, which I think is available in the US. It's called something else. I can't remember it now, but it's like a concentrated like fruit sort of. It's a liquid that you add to water that makes it taste more like a fruit. It's somewhere between fruit juice and water. And again, it does just sort of add sugar to water. It does make it taste better if you're, for example, 6 years old. I do think it is more normal, and it is quite shocking, like not to sound like one of the people that wrote this episode, but the amount of sugar that people can and do drink in a day here is a lot. Like sometimes like when I go to Starbucks, sometimes I'll get like an iced coffee and I'll ask for like 2 or 3 pumps of caramel syrup if I want to treat myself. But like people will go full on like Frappuccino in the morning at the airport kind of thing. And that, but it seems nuts to me, but it is also kind of a biological thing. Like once your body gets used to that and starts to require that sugar, it's just like any other addiction. It feels normal, and you feel bad if you don't have it. And once you got to that point, like you say, if you can get to that point by the time you're, before you've even graduated high school, then it's really hard to kind of give that up.
I do at least like that this episode, despite, hearing Carolyn Omine mention that before was like sort of about joking on personal responsibility, they do make the company evil, like evil, and that they are controlling things and using that against people. And I will say again, Carolyn Omine, super nice to us, and also like one of the few Bernie Democrats in the Simpsons writers' room these days. I don't.
Yes. And there's a funny joke from Al Jean on the commentary. He says, "Can I sue the Simpsons for making me fat?"
Because it makes everybody fat. Yeah, though honestly, the Simpsons have given him so much money at this point that that is his payment.
Just pay for the blasted liposuction, as Mr. Burns once said.
Yes, every episode of The Simpsons that's about gaining weight or Homer being fat, it is because they all get fat working on the show. Like same Bill Oakley, the same deal. But yes, one other bit I want to mention in the preamble is that Al Jean mentions a New York Times article profile on the season and that published right around when this episode aired. I was like, oh, I got to read this. And so finally found it. It was written by A.O. Scott, published in the New York Times in November 2001. First off, I have to say, I'm going to blame the editor, not A.O. Scott. It's titled Homer's Odyssey, which I'm like, ugh, terrible headline.
How many of those have been written with that title, though?
Just hack headline, man. And then secondly, that they do... There's some interesting stuff in there of them doing the table read for Old Man and the Key, and also Matt Groening and Sam Simon kind of snipe at each other in it, which is funny through quotes. It's I shared it with you, Bob. It is the exact same article that's been written about The Simpsons for over 2 decades now, which is, hey, this show's still on. Can you believe it? Let's ask the people who still work there that they're, hey, Al Jean, what do you think of this show still being on TV? That's weird, right?
And I can tell, I mean, A.O. Scott is a good writer, but I feel like, this is written every 5 years, and it's Al Jean saying, actually, we're more popular than ever. Actually, back when we were running the show in the 90s, people online said those shows were bad. Like, I can tell you all 5 of his canned responses, which, to be fair to him, what else is he going to say?
Yeah, you're going to sleepwalk through every interview and it's exactly the same. And every time we talk about this, I'll say it again. Put this out there to Al Jean. I promise you, Al Jean, if you finally do a podcast interview with us, we will not ask any of these questions. I swear to you, Al Jean. Come. Yeah, I mean, GQ... like literally this year published the exact same article as this one.
I think like 2 months ago.
Yes, 2 months ago.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because if you're Al Jean, you can't really just say, yeah, it sucks and I have loads of money, so what do you... It's loads and loads of money, so what do you want me to do about it?
Are you going to fire me? I don't think so.
Are you going to turn down $12 million a year for this job? I don't know.
Yeah, or is the Fox network going to, turn down...
exactly.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know how the economics of TV work. I don't understand the child that is growing up watching The Simpsons today. It's like I haven't seen an episode of The Simpsons that was, released in the last, 10 years or something. So it's, I think of it as a different show. But that's my headcanon is that it ended in 2000.
You think of this season 13 episode as a newer episode when really it's not even in the first half of all Simpsons episodes that exist now.
And it's over 20 years old.
Partly a function of how long the show has been on and partly a function of being old. It's how it took me until about 2015 to realize that 1990 wasn't 10 years ago.
The Simpsons will be right back.
Oh, I don't know how to make anything fancy.
Make something homey style.
Hey. Ooh, cheese, beef, more cheese, bacon, 3 more strips. I declare this Extreme Burger the winner.
Homer, you've created a Whopper.
For a limited time, get the new Extreme Bacon and Cheese Whopper. Juicy flame-broiled beef, 2 kinds of cheese, 4 strips of bacon. You gotta have the Extreme Bacon and Cheese Whopper at Burger King now.
Woohoo! Carry me home. Go!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Break. Hope you're enjoying your sugar with free donuts. And a big thank you to our guest this week, Libby Watson. It's always awesome to have her back on and her insight into the world of healthcare meets politics in America that you can read regularly in her great journalism in Sick Note. So please check out Sick Note and Libby Watson on Twitter. And if you enjoy this podcast, well, you should know that Talking Simpsons is only possible because of supporters who are like you that sign up at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Those listeners get to hear every episode of Talking Simpsons a week earlier and ad-free. You can hear next week's right now with Mike Mitchell if you signed up at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. And also for $5 a month, you also get a monthly episode of Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill of me and Bob covering those series just like we do The Simpsons super duper in depth. We're in season 3 of Futurama and season 2 of King of the Hill. It's been a whole lot of fun, and you can hear the entire back catalog of those. Also is covering The Critic, Mission Hill, and 10 episodes of Batman the Animated Series, all at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. But if you want something as nice as Choco Blasted Baby Aspirin, then you got to sign up at the $10 premium level at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, because you get all that $5 stuff I was just telling you about, and then you get our monthly What a Cartoon movie podcast, where me and Bob cover an animated feature film super duper in depth, talking for over 5, even 6 hours about animated feature films. Recent ones have included, this month you're going to hear us talk about the Disney Renaissance classic Beauty and the Beast. The month before that, The Little Mermaid, Toy Story 3, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, and a giant back catalog of almost 4 years worth of animated feature films, covering things like Beavis and Butthead Do America, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, a Goofy movie, Millennium Actress, Kiki's Delivery Service, and tons more. Please check out everything in our massive Patreon back catalog at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. I didn't clip it out like we did with the funny Delroy Lindo thing, but this is a funny commentary because Mark Kirkland, the director of the episode,
poor guy. Sorry, Henry.
He is really getting crapped on by the writers on this. Like, the thing with the animators is they're totally taken for granted, and there's a giant, incredibly hard thing they had to animate in this episode, and the writers keep goofing on him the entire time when he's trying to say, like, boy, this was really hard, and they're just like, oh, did you have to draw 2 balls? And he's like, yeah, I had to draw 2 balls. And they're like, come on, it's a comedy show, Mark, we're just kidding around.
Yeah, kind of disrespectful.
Yes, yeah. And also, they honestly, the writers on this show who have worked in animation for years and years at this point, decades even when they recorded this interview, they are asking questions of him like that you would ask somebody you'd meet at a party who you find out is an animator. Like, so how do you do this anyway? Is it like all on computers?
You still draw this? You still draw it?
I was like, you've been a producer on this show since like 2000. Like, you're asking this in 2009 on a commentary? I just feel like the if you're a writer on The Simpsons, learn a little about how
we're calling you out, Tom Gamble.
Tom Gamble, he's one of the guiltier parties on it, I have to say. Yes, yeah. But all right,
he's a funny guy.
But anyway, he's very funny. Tom Gamble's very funny. He's friendly with the Chapo boys. I know that. He's a cool dude. But I'm just saying, learn how this show's made a little bit more. That's all.
Do better.
Yeah, just do better. All right. So the episode begins with a short intro because Al Jean's back, baby. Cutting those intros shorter and shorter. Straight, no, drive through the whole town and straight to the garage in the opening. And man, in that couch gag, the way Homer's head is yanked up is disturbing to me. I don't know.
That's why he complains about his brain.
Yeah. And so this Act 1 begins with The Simpsons Go to the Library. What comedy can be gotten out of The Simpsons going to the library? Which the best joke in the library section to me is Marge, the opening clip I played of Marge just pointing out comedy conceits of like, why do you always wait until we arrive to complain?
Yeah.
I don't know. But then we follow that up with some very nerdy jokes about Leonard Nimoy and his many biographies.
That's right. And I like how on the cover there's no there's the fingers. There are only 4 fingers on the character, so it's like a 3-finger live long and prosper thing. So just they have to like make it work somehow. But yeah, so Leonard Nimoy, he probably wrote another one after these, but he wrote I Am Not Spock. That's his 75 autobiography. And it is not him distancing himself from the character of Spock, as the title implies. That title comes from an anecdote in the book in which a mother at an airport with her little girl said, honey, this is Dr. Spock. And the little girl did not believe that he was Spock. So that's what that was based on. But he regretted that title for his entire life because he thought he upset fans and he thought he was sending the wrong impression, which is why his 95 autobiography was called I Am Spock. And the foreword of that book is a letter written from Spock to Nimoy, thinking the original title was very perplexing, the title of the 75 book. So there you
Highly
have it.
illogical.
Exactly. I'm sure he used that. And yes, it is 10 years after their Star Trek 7 So Very Tired parody, but they are still making Scotty is fat jokes. There are some real Al Jean specials in this episode.
Yeah. And, well, James Doohan's not long for this world in the aughts, so they got to do as many fat Scotty jokes as they can.
Yeah, I mean, they are wheeling out all of their 90s fat jokes, which is why Marlon Brando appears
Jesus Christ,
in this episode. Yeah.
Yeah, not the. And you know what? I just a few months after this episode aired, with the jokes about I am Spock and I am not Spock, Dan Castellaneta and Deb LaCosta released their comedy sketch album I Am Not Homer.
Oh wow, okay.
With a parody photo of as the cover of Castellaneta doing the Live Long and Prosper, but with a little Homer head toy in between his fingers. And then it ends. It's a bunch of sketches that are him and his wife, who were an improv comedy duo, doing scenes and stuff that are not Homer Simpson. It's just like little comedy scenes. But then the last track on the album actually it's an 8-minute long song sung by Homer, Krusty, and Abe. So it's there actually is. You still get some Homer even on the I Am Not Homer album.
I have to track that one down, I think.
If you've got Amazon Music, it's a free stream. That's how I listened to it yesterday. Following that, we get a quick joke with Dr. Nick Riviera. This also feels like Al Jean's back, and he's like, you know what? It's Dr. Nick. We haven't done stuff with him anymore. He's a bad doctor. Remember that? He hasn't spoken a line since Trilogy of Error. And after that, even before that, it had been a while since we'd seen old Dr. Nick. I think because they make Dr. Hibbert so bad as a doctor at this point, they don't need Dr. Nick for a bad doctor.
There's no need for a second crooked doctor.
Yeah. Though I do like him that lady swallowed a baby. That's a good line.
Yeah, that was a good line, yeah.
Also, Lisa watching in pain as pigs eat books. That's a good joke.
Cletus has been to the library before because he said nothing cracks a turtle like Leon Uris.
That's a good. I prefer that to the Bridget Jones Diary by Helen Fielding joke.
That made me so mad. I was like, that is not a Simpsons joke. I mean, I should say before we really dive in that I have not. I mean, I watched seasons like 11 through maybe like 14, like a bit while they were on, but haven't really revisited them since. And so I am going to be the extremely annoying classic Simpsons fan who refuses to have fun with any of this. And that one really made me mad because I was like, that is such a lame, bad joke. This should not be on The Simpsons.
I find the phrase Bridget Jones's diarrhea to be pretty funny though. in a vacuum.
Yes.
I mean, diarrhea, great comedy word, very hard to spell. I can never get it right the first time.
Yeah, Libby, as a British person, how do you rank Renee Zellweger's accent in those Bridget Jones films?
Oh, it was great. I didn't know she was American until years later.
Really?
I will say in general, I think British actors are generally better at doing American accents than American actors are at doing British accents. But she is the exception. She's really good.
I think her British accent is better than the Doctor Strange American accent.
Awful. Yeah, I mean, it's just bizarre to me to have Benedict Cumberbatch do an American accent, like period. Like of all the Brits to do an American accent, like what are you doing? And
there's only one deleted scene on the DVD that I'll bring up now, and it's honestly, I think, a funnier joke than Bridget Jones's diarrhea, and I wish they kept it in there.
Before you continue, is this related to the fact that Homer puts away the poems of William Blake?
No, it's not. That's not on the DVD.
Okay, because when we cut back to Homer, he is disgustingly putting a book back, and for a few frames you can see it's called The Complete Poems of William Blake. I don't know if that was another joke intended there, but yeah, please continue. I'm sorry.
No. So this one is, it's a joke made perfectly by Al Jean for other nerdy kids who grew up reading Encyclopedia Brown books, but it's Bart and Milhouse reading Encyclopedia Brown mysteries, and it is called Encyclopedia Brown and the Case of the Strange New Feelings.
Oh.
And the mystery is, why is Bugs Meany taking such long showers? And then the characters Bart and Milhouse skip to the solution at the back of the book and go, ew. So I like specific jokes about Encyclopedia Brown and his nemesis Bugs Meany in in TV shows. But yes, then we come to our first clip of the episode as Homer finally discovers a book he loves.
Lisa, you're not buying more than your weight in books.
But I have to save them. The books no one buys get chopped up and fed to pigs.
Helen Fielding's giving them pigs Bridget Jones's diarrhea.
Well, what about this? The Duff Book of World Records. It's got pictures of deformities.
Okay. Oh my God! Wow, now that's a goiter.
Why would Duff Beer put out a book? It was originally published to settle arguments in taverns.
She said tavern. I'm going to Moe's.
I never agreed to that rule!
Oh, that's a great line.
Yeah, that's good.
I like what was implied there.
Yeah, that's a sign of a deeply troubled alcoholic. But as this taps into, again, a thing killed by the internet, but I had a real childhood love for the Book of World Records, the Guinness Book of World Records.
I think every kid does, and they really touch upon the first things you look up and the things that are cited. Like, I know it's just like you immediately go to the longest fingernails page, like, okay, who's got it this year? Or like the world's fattest man, or what's the biggest tumor? Like all of the, like, again, deformities, you know.
Yes. Okay. I love Homer's pouty okay there.
Yes, it's very much like a good thing for Homer's childlike mind to go straight to that book, because it like you say, it is something that I can't really imagine an adult being all that interested in, because it is obviously just the most pointless stuff. So I think that that is good and in character, I would say, which is not always something that you get in these seasons.
And Lisa's brief history of the Duff version of sounds a bit like the real life one, isn't it?
Yeah, I learned this. I learned this 20 years ago, and it's one of those things that sounds made up, but you never think of like, what is the Guinness in the Guinness Book of World Records? I don't know, some guy. Well, no, that guy is Sir Hugh Beaver, who was the managing director of the Guinness breweries in the early 50s. So he was on a hunting trip with some lads, as they call them, and they got into an argument about what was the fastest game bird in Europe. And he thought, you know what, if there was a book full of these answers, it would be a hit, and it was. So there was a very small, independent printing in 1954, a much bigger commercial one in 55, and then in 56 it was available in America as an institution. And by the way, because nobody can read anymore, it's just called Guinness World Records, not Book of. And around this time, there was both a Guinness World Records and a Ripley's Believe It or Not show on TV. In season 11, we covered this already, but Take My Wife's Fleas, that episode, it opens with a parody of the Fox Guinness show.
Oh,
yes.
Okay. That's cool, man.
And one other thing, Dean Cain hosts the Ripley show, and I bet he thought, like, man, I'm slumming it. He wishes he was on that show 20 years later, and not in whatever, like, God's Not Dead 4.
Right,
the final gardening or whatever he's in now.
The bits that Kevin Sorbo says no to. He's like, well, I guess I'll take it if Kevin Sorbo didn't want it. It's well, you know, this may surprise some folks, but yeah, I didn't, as a kid, I love the Guinness Book of World Records, but I did not know what the Guinness stood for as a company. I just knew it as like, well, yeah, it's just like, it's the Guinness Book of World Records, whatever that is. And later in like my teen years, I think I first heard of it on Mystery Science Theater. They did jokes about Guinness being a extremely thick and dark beer, which is different from popular beers in America. Like my mom and dad never drank Guinness ever. And then it was only, I think in the aughts or maybe like 2010 or something, that it finally clicked for me of like, wait, the Guinness that is that thick, dark beer also is the world record, people. Wow.
Right. Polar opposite experience for me, because not only was I familiar with Guinness, but my dad actually worked for Guinness. So we had...
Holy cow.
Yeah, we had Guinness, you know, around the house. We had the Guinness, like, you know, the books around the house and stuff. And so to me, Guinness was always, you know, that Guinness. I think by the time I was born, he maybe didn't work there anymore or whatever. But I still have a pretty cool Guinness, vintage Guinness T-shirt that, because they had that really cool logo with the toucan. They had a lot of like I don't know why. I don't know what the toucan had to do with the beer.
They got rid of that toucan a while ago. I love seeing vintage Guinness ads with the toucan, which is like the opposite in tone of the dark, like bready beer you're going to drink. There's nothing like tropical and fruity about it.
It's
like so disgusting.
It's like toucans, like Cockney rhyming slang or something for drinking a can of beer or something. Is that the?
I don't know. I've been to the Guinness brewery in Dublin because I was on vacation there, and like someone had told me like, oh, even if you don't like Guinness, you should try the Guinness at the Guinness brewery because it like tastes different there because it's so fresh or whatever. And I was like, damn, this stuff sucks. This is just as bad as regular Guinness. It's really nasty. So I should try it again because I'm finally becoming a beer drinker now in my 30s. So I think I see Guinness as sort of the final boss of beer that I would have to, I've gotten up to the point where I can drink Miller High Life and enjoy it. So now, further down the road is the Guinness prize.
My favorite record as a kid to look up was Fattest and Tallest. That was the two, especially, I mean, the gigantic twins who were also pro wrestlers, the guys famously on the motorcycles.
They'll show up in the show a few times.
Yeah, and the tallest man. But then all of them, I think this is something the Guinness also wanted to get away from later in life. That they're like, well, we don't want to inspire people to be fatter than the old record of the fattest guy. Or if you look up the tallest guy, it's like, oh yeah, he had gigantism and died at like 31 or something.
22.
Yeah, 22.
No one will beat Robert Wadlow, and I recognize that name because it's like, who else is going to be the world's tallest man? No one is going to be 8'11".
Oh, Jesus.
Not really much you can do to get to that goal. You could try stretching yourself, like Bart does, but not really going to happen. I think for me, I was into guys who put too many things in their mouths. Like. How many pennies can you hold in your mouth or whatever? That's a good one.
Billiard balls, yeah.
I was reading about them, and it sounds like they have now like distanced themselves from records that are like about animal cruelty or like self-harm and things like that.
That's good.
Although I was reading like John Oliver
clubbed in a minute. Yeah.
Yes, or like the world's fattest cat or whatever. It's like, please don't kill your cat with food. I was reading like John Oliver was like putting them under fire for basically kind of falling for every like dictator and whatever weird stunt they wanted to do, like a dictator that's starving their people. It's like, I'm gonna build the world's biggest blank, and they're like, we're gonna be there with our cameras. So that's where they're kind of getting attacked by like people like John Oliver. So.
And one last bit of trivia fact: we have actually had on a Guinness World Record holder as a guest on our show, which I totally forgotten this. It's multi-time appearer Dan Reichert of Giant Bomb fame. He's that's the video game website he works for. His record isn't for the world's biggest bomb, but his record is video game related, and according to the Guinness website, it still stands. He has the longest period of playing a Mario video game without stopping at 50 hours. 50.
Wow.
It is not. He said it in 2012, and it still stands to this day.
At one point, he thought he was a hummingbird.
But yeah, so Homer very drunkenly runs off to Moe's, and he winds up in the exact dream scenario of having the Guinness Book of World Records, or the Duff one. I do like that they Duffify it instead of just calling it the Guinness Book too. But this is when Homer helps the guys with their clothespin questions.
Let's see, most clothespins swallowed, inserted. Here we go. Clip to face and neck. 116.
Huh. Geez, I was wrong. But I ain't angry.
And I'm magnanimous in victory.
Wow, that's the best book I've ever seen.
Nope. The best book you've ever seen is Tom Clancy's Op Center.
That thing knows me better than I know myself.
Oh, here's a good one. The world's most overrated saint.
Francis of Assisi.
Oh, I've used up all these records.
Why don't you try to set a record, Dad?
That's a great idea. Do you think I could run a mile in 3.5 minutes?
Only on Mars.
The Simpsons are going to Mars. So pack your... Or maybe I'll think of something else.
Homer's pitching a better idea for an episode.
The Simpsons Go to Mars episode. I was checking the time on the episode. I was like, it's at 3 minutes. The characters are all actively bored of like, all right, enough of this world record reading book stuff. Like, we got to move on to a new plot line. And you know what? The current record for clothespins on face, 161, set by Gary Turner of the United Kingdom on the set of Rekalar Dunyasi in Istanbul, Turkey.
You know what? I have 163, but it was verified by Ripley's and not Guinness.
Oh, see, I'm going by the Guinness
interesting rivalry
website
there.
one. Oh, okay.
And so they have the book open. They have the picture of the guy with clothespins. It's the real guy. It's actually Kevin Thackwell. It's not a comedy name under the picture. That was the guy who was on. That was the guy who was on the Ripley's Believe It or Not TV show in 2001.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and his record was 120, not 116.
Wow, man. But it's clearly, how did people find 40 more space for 40 more clothespins since then?
Again, you just got to be born with a bigger face. You know, it's just who's got the biggest face, the most surface area to put stuff on.
I guess you need a big, loose face, so this is not a stunt for the young. I tried looking up Kevin Thackwell. He's not online, so... I don't know where he is.
Oh, the loosest face. He had face loosening surgery, adding extra jowls to his face.
And I have one more. Okay, this is just. I'm full of useless facts, and I apologize.
We're just like Homer reading facts to people.
Did you
till
know?
They're bored. Yeah.
But I love that Mo's favorite book is Tom Clancy's Op Center. Op Center is a series of books that started in '95 and is running to this day. Not written by Tom Clancy, all ghostwritten. And they are mostly ghostwritten by a man named Jeff Rovin, who in my youth wrote a lot of video game strategy guides. And he immediately went on to write right-wing propaganda for Tom Clancy. So
yeah, I saw the most recent thing mentioned on his wiki page was that he appeared on like Fox News in 2016 saying, I was like a secret fixer for the Clinton family and I set up Hillary Clinton with lesbian relationships or something. I was like, oh, wow. In between writing guides to Doom 2, he was...
Honestly, sounds like a very cool job, so I don't know what he's complaining about.
I mean, I know him best for How to Win in Nintendo Games 1, 2, and 3. And that's what they were called. No pictures in those books either.
It's so, now Tom Clancy is obviously quite dead, and there's still things labeled as Tom Clancy's blank that he never once touched. But it's funny that even when he was very alive in 1995, he's like, this is Tom Clancy's Op Center, in that I had the idea for a thing called Op Center and somebody else is going to write it. Like, it's the Tom Clancy is an actual writer thing kind of lost already. But yeah, and you know what, they're already eating their frosting gobs in this first shot here, just setting it up.
I have to say that I did hate the Simpsons are going to Mars joke. And again, in my role as a crotchety nerd, it just irritates me because all of the sort of self-referential, like, here we are doing a joke about what The Simpsons does stuff really irritates me, because it's like, it's this sort of weird, like, ironic detachment from, like, being The Simpsons. It's like, well, no, we're not really being The Simpsons because we know it's kind of not as good anymore. So what we're going to do is kind of make a joke about how we are The Simpsons, And I'm like, that's not a joke. Like, that's not actually a joke, though. That's just a reference,
The joke is they would do something as crazy as going to Mars. They're like, no, we wouldn't have The Simpsons go to Mars. We would have Homer go on a secret special ops mission to steal sugar from a made-up island, but he's not going to fly to Mars.
It did feel like the late 90s is when they really started feeling the baggage of history, and that's when The Simpsons are going to blank phrases started happening, where it's like, we sometimes do vacation episodes. It's fine.
And then in a very silly joke, Homer goes to the world record place, and the people in the waiting room are there, including what seems to be the world's fattest man, but it's actually Marlon Brando. That's the joke. He's still alive for 2 more years, so he can do 2 more years of fat Brando jokes. And
I feel like that joke fell out of a critic script. Like, we didn't use this one Brando fat joke.
Yeah, there's multiple in here. They're like, well, that's just critic. Though, really, the next episode that starts with like 17 movie parodies, I'm like, okay, this was just a critic script. But when it's a Marlon Brando joke, that's when I think, like, Critic had like 17 Marlon Brando is fat jokes, which I get it. You grow up and he's when you're growing up as a boomer, he's this skinny sex symbol. I get it. And then he turns into a very heavy man who's weird and lives on an island. I get why you make fun of it, but how corny. But a real corny joke comes from Homer pitching world record ideas to the heads of the Duff book.
Fine. I'll just play the banjo with this cobra. Wait.
Technically the Cobra would get the record. He's the one playing.
But it's my banjo.
Mr. Simpson, there are thousands of people like you with no discernible talent.
Yeah, they're called Congress.
Shut up.
Okay.
All the individual records were set by crackpots who have killed themselves. The only way someone new can get in the book is with some kind of group stunt.
Group stunt?
Like the town that made the world's largest omelet.
Denver?
No, Spanish.
Hello, Springfielders. I have called you all here so we can enter the Duff Book of World Records. We're going to build the world's tallest human pyramid.
Finally, this town will have a real claim to fame.
Aye, we can stop all the lies.
In the Springfield, birthplace of the Beatles.
You know, I mostly know Hee Haw through Simpsons parodies. We're revisiting season 3 right now. We're about to get to the biggest one, but it's always fun to see one, especially in 2002.
Yes, the only reason it felt like so monkey cheese, the like playing a banjo with a cobra, but it was just a setup. They knew they were coming to an incredibly corny joke of like Denver, no, Spanish.
Right.
Yeah, it's when Homer just looks at the screen of like, yep, we did a joke that stupid. We felt like you can't stop us. Like you said, Libby, it's much like Simpsons Go to Mars. The fun they're having is rubbing your face and like, yep, we did do that joke. Like,
right.
You can't stop us.
But just not executing it as well as seasons, I don't know, like 3 or 4 through 8 or 9, because they, it's not like they didn't do weird jokes in previous seasons. There were all kinds of weird, like sort of quote unquote random seeming jokes that other shows would imitate poorly, but they stuck the landing with those, and they don't stick the landing here, but they substitute not sticking the landing with saying, hey, look at this, it's a Simpsons joke, get it? It's just kind of weird. It's very sort of early 2000s, just like figuring out how to deploy irony and not getting it right.
Well, I have to point out, Homer really went through an arc, because in the episode 8, Misbehavin', he was bitten by a ton of cobras. And then in the Parent Rap, he had night terrors of cobras biting him because of events in the past. Now, he can handle a cobra, play the banjo with it. He's gotten over his fear. He went through a real arc.
You're right.
Yeah.
Man. Homer's finally free of his cobra fears, that he can play. He can shove a cobra all over a banjo and not. Also, it's like, I don't know. I didn't even have it in a clip because I thought it was just so empty. Just Homer just going like, just like, oh, Homer's just going to stand in place and make noises for 10 seconds. All right.
Thankfully not 3 days.
Yes, yeah. But so, Bob, did you look up the human pyramid record as well?
Oh, I did not. Please tell.
So the world's, I'm reading this directly from the Guinness website. The tallest human pyramid consisted of 9 levels and was 12 meters, 39 feet high. It was completed by Joseph Juan Martinez Lozano of Cola Vela del Iquets, mounted in Valls, Spain in October 25th, 1981. It has been equaled but not beaten. In China, in July 2015, they did it again, but they could only equal that guy's height. They could not get higher than it. And it took the one in China, I couldn't find a number listed for how many people for the 81 version, but for the Chinese version in 2015, 450 people were part of that human pyramid. That's just how many. So.
Wow. Now, I don't know about engineering or anything. Is the weight evenly distributed, or are the people on the bottom having a bad time?
It actually doesn't seem, so Homer's is an actual, like, triangular pyramid. The photo I saw of the Chinese version was more of, like, a bunch of people at the bottom, and then it gets way skinnier at the top. Like
it's more of like a 3-dimensional pyramid, not just like an outline of a pyramid.
Yeah, it's more conical. It looked like in the photo. Yes, yeah. So, and boy, oh boy, this is where Mark Kirkland says that the second he got this script, he got a migraine, because he's like, so one, we have to draw a gigantic pyramid full of dozens of identifiable characters.
Yes.
Then they're going to have that pyramid fall apart into a giant ball of humans, a people ball, if you will.
So a few shout outs. Artist Matthew Schofield, layout artist Matthew Schofield, it took him a few days just to draw the entire pyramid of people, which they used as the basis of the people ball, like where the people would be. So yes, it's a very complicated drawing, and if you look very closely, there are a lot of painting mistakes, but there are like 100 people on the screen, so it's like Skinner's hair is brown, I don't care. Someone had to draw all this.
Yes, the ball is very impressive, I will say.
We have a quick joke from Krusty about Elkie Summers, which he then follows that up with "Great Lady Elkie." Like he does first a joke about German sex symbol of the '60s, Elkie Summer, and then he's like, "But actually, she's a great lady." He does a lot of philanthropy.
I appreciate that choice, the specificity of that, because I looked her up and it's like, well, that is the perfect like old Hollywood babe for Krusty to know, because she was on Johnny Carson a bunch. She was on like Bob Hope specials and the Dean Martin show, just like the busty blonde you stick in sketches with an old man who's probably going to sexually harass her backstage.
And Elkie's still with us at 81.
But I didn't see a lot of charity work from her.
I looked up her philanthropy. It listed some stuff, but just general charity. She's not, like Jerry Lewis or whatever. But yeah, she's and she also was in A Shot in the Dark and one of the Carry On films, which that's one of those things that like old British comedy nerds are like, no, the Carry On, it's the best. I'm like, no, it's not. I would bet it's probably a very cancelable series now, the Carry On series.
Undoubtedly, yeah. No, I always just something that I knew of as just absolute shit. Just a really bad thing that very, very stupid and annoying people liked.
And then we have a very critic-like long parody of a movie that was new then that people don't remember now.
Please tell me, because I'm like, what is this sting? What is this parody? I don't know what it is.
So it did Homer climbing, and it's very funny seeing him expose butt cracks. Like that gives me, it's a cheap laugh, but I laugh every time. But it didn't hit me. The climbing and the music, I was like, boy, this is so specific. It's when Homer has to readjust himself and kind of turn around into his two arms, and his like chest is out. He's almost like in a crucifix position or whatever. It's Mission Impossible 2 and Tom Cruise climbing the mountain at the start of Mission Impossible 2. That's what it is parodying.
Wow, so that's a year 2000 movie.
Yes.
So there are 3 year 2000 parodies. We have that movie, Mission Impossible 2. We have Chocolat, and we also have Aaron Brockovich.
Yes, yeah. It's hey, they're doing current movies. Then it's I'll give them credit for that. But yeah, when Homer turned around, I was like, oh, okay, maybe we don't remember Mission Impossible 2 as much just because like Tom Cruise has done so many more crazier stunts than that mountain climb at the start of Mission Impossible 2. Honestly, him climbing the Dubai skyscraper in Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol is much more memorable to me than the mountain in Mission Impossible 2.
Yeah, I have to say that didn't register with me as a reference. A lot of Simpsons references go over my head because I'm missing a lot of cultural canon due to being stupid and being not American. And that one went way over my head. And I have to say, honestly, the only thing it reminded me of is I'm playing Horizon Forbidden West right now, and it just reminded me. I was like, hey, that's kind of like when Aloy does a jump that she absolutely can't do. But that's as far as my brain went towards understanding what was going on.
When Homer falls after the Bumblebee Man's stinger breaks, there's an angle of him falling. I'm like, well, he's dead. And then in the next angle, it's like, no, he's very close to them, actually. Yeah. But Homer rights himself and climbs the rest of the way up. And they're still not breaking the limit. That's when Maggie magically appears and gets placed on Homer's head. And it almost counts, but they can't stay still for 3 Mississippi thanks to teen homophobia separating them.
Gay panic.
Yes, gay panic does it. And so this is when dozens of people, hundreds really, tumble all in one shot to then create a people ball.
Yes, and this is before the show was digital. So what they had to do was basically what old school animators did in the past, and that's rotoscope. So basically, director Mark Kirkland, he got layout artist Paul Wee, which his name dropped a ton on these commentaries. Like, they love Paul Wee, just a very talented artist. He basically drew the people onto a globe that Mark had painted white, and they used that as the basis for the ball, what it would look like as it was moving. They just photographed it a bunch to say, like, okay, when the ball turns, here's how all the people on it turn. They basically traced that in a rotoscopy way. It's hard to explain, but if this is a Futurama episode, they could just tell, Rough Draft, build us a people ball, and then computers can rotate it. But because this is pre-digital, they have to do everything by hand. Every frame of this ball is drawn by a person.
Wow.
And we've also take a shot at mentioning another interview we did, but we also did interview Mark Kirkland, and I like that, he's an old school kind of guy. Like, he grew up loving the masters of old animation, so I kind of like that his way of meeting that challenge was saying like, oh, well, then let's just draw on a real ball and then photograph it in rotoscope. Like, let's do what Disney would have done in, 101 Dalmatians or whatever. Like, that's such a clever thing. But this was the biggest part on the commentary where Kirkland is trying to impart how impossible a task they were handed, the huge amount of work done to make this stupid idea work, and then the frustration he is feeling as the writers are just joking around about like, oh yeah, the people, oh, did you make 2 people balls? Did you lose one of the balls? Like, man, I just feel, I get that they're like trying to goof around with him or whatever, but they should be like on their knees, like praying to Mark Kirkland for the work him and his team did on this. And that then leads to a whole discussion on the commentary. Like, so do the computers help with drawing it? Do you still draw it on paper and then scan it? Wow. I was like, you guys should know this. But sorry, Libby, you were going to say some stuff. I've been on
No, not at all. No, I had no thoughts other than just that I agree that I can totally imagine. I haven't listened to the commentary, but totally imagine that kind of writer smugness of thinking that writing is something that only I could do because I'm the perfect genius.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's like anybody can write down an idea. It's for an animator to actually make it work on The Simpsons.
I think David Silverman, years before this, they sent him like a very impossible scene to animate, like a zoo train going out of control or something like that.
Yeah, the zoo train crashes into it's a circus train that crashes into a zoo, so all the animals start fighting each other.
Yes.
That was it.
And he sent back a fax of a drawing of him losing his mind, and they changed the actual joke.
Just into a giant riot of people, which also was very hard for them to draw. Yeah, the animators are certainly taken for granted, but yes. So then there's a big ball of doom scene. People falling into it. Marge saying my hairstyle. That's a very random thing to say. I do like the guy jumping into it and saying like, hello, ironic twist. Like, but my favorite bit is after everybody crashes very conveniently onto a truck way station, Kearney is dead in the next shot.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I'm like, what's that about?
Well, let's just say that he was resuscitated after this, but I just love that he's like, dude, you're on me, dude. Like, the Kearney is a corpse. But yes, the Springfield accidentally sets a world record after all.
I am so far from my car.
Dude, you're lying on top of me. Dude.
Wait a minute, look at the scale.
Divide by the number of people, subtract belts and shoes.
Everyone, welcome to the Duff Book of World Records. Springfield is the world's fattest town.
Woohoo! In your face, Milwaukee!
Milwaukee is as fattest town. I guess that's good, but it's not. It's no East St. Louis. Like that, I like the specificity of their cruelty to the very poor town of East St. Louis.
People are too poor there to be fat.
Sure.
Milwaukee is like the land of beer and cheese. Mm-hmm. You can't go wrong there.
Oh yeah,
and fried cheese.
I mean,
great town.
Bad. Yeah. But yeah, so the Springfield is officially the fattest city. It gets them on the cover of the newest edition of the Guinness Book of World Records. They are now Fat City USA. So the reasoning for this was that when they were coming up with world records, that I believe Omine says it was her that it hit her. They're like, wait, a lot of our characters, especially the men in the show, are drawn with at least a belly, if not being very obese. And so they go straight for it in this episode.
There was the stock male character design of adult men on the show, where if you look at characters designed after maybe like season 10, they're different. But like every man on the show, every little boy too, is the upside down light bulb body. Mm-hmm. They all have little guts.
Yeah.
The Graining style really loves drawing guts on people. It's a funny art style. I laugh seeing some of the guts on them. But yeah, seeing all of the hugest characters like undulating very unnaturally in the front row. I forgot this is another one of the Homer pennants. It's the girth pennant. My eyes are always drawn to his fat pride shirt that I miss his pennant that says girth. Another of Homer's many wonderful pennants.
I would put that on my wall for sure.
And I mean, fat pride is a joke, but it's like 20 years later, there's like more conversations about fat acceptance and things like that. So it's just interesting to see, like, well, isn't that a silly idea? But it's just like, well, these are conversations we have now, you know.
Yeah. I mean, you know, I think body positivity is a good thing, though. You should ask your doctor, like, hey, you know, should I lose some weight? But there are some shitty doctors out there too. But probably you don't need as many fudge stuffed toaster pies. Probably. That's though, boy, as a little kid into my early 30s, I was a big fan of the real life fudge stuffed toaster pies, which are toaster strudel, which they, you know, in my childhood, the apple toaster strudel and cherry, those are my favorites. But then later in life, I didn't eat these ones because I still like the fruit versions. But they did just cut to the chase, just like Pop-Tarts, of just like, why don't we just fill this with chocolate? Why are we pretending that there's fruit inside? Let's just put chocolate or sugar in.
Who are we fooling? Now, Henry, life hack, did you put the little frosting packet near the toaster, on the edge of the toaster?
I would, yes. Yeah, that's true.
Smart. Yeah, see, we never had toaster strudel. We only had Pop-Tarts in my poor, deprived country. We only had Pop-Tarts. And I love Pop-Tarts, I have to say. I mean, again, like, as a kid growing up, I ate so much trash, and Pop-Tarts right at the top of the list. I remember when we had Lucky Charms in the UK, and I want to say that they were, I don't know if they were, like, taken off the market, but they certainly disappeared from the market. And I remember being really disappointed and seeing them in The Simpsons, you know, parodied in The Simpsons, being like, damn, that stuff's great. I wish we had those still.
I mean, they should be illegal. Honestly, that many those. Now I'm sounding like Jamie Oliver here all of a sudden. But I do. I mean, again, though, here it's like, Marge, you're buying these fudge stuffed toaster pies. Like, you know, be the change already.
Right?
Marge.
Wait, why are you yelling at the children? She's like, oh, you kids do eat a lot of sugar. It's like, well, you're their mom? No, they're not going to the store.
Though clearly, you know, Lisa loves sugar, but it's not affecting her. Like, she is, you know, of normal weight. But Bart, you can still, anytime they want to call Bart fat, I'm like, I guess he is fat the way you draw him. Yeah, that's true. But yes, they as there's a cute little joke. I guess it's Oliver Hardy acting. Who would you say, like, the way Maggie moves the fudge from her eyes, like it's a real silent comedy kind of long act. Yeah.
I don't know if it's referencing a specific shot, but it does feel like, Laurel and Hardy, like someone just like wiping slowly and then flicking it away in anger.
Yeah. The gradualness of it feels it. Yeah. And you know, this really is pretty much just the same as Homer with the rice cakes joke, but I like that Homer is handed a grapefruit, which he only uses to cover in sugar, lick clean of sugar, and throw away a grapefruit. That is why he bought a grapefruit, not even to enjoy any of the grapefruit.
You know, I noticed that bit because something I used to get from a restaurant in DC that was really good was a bruleed grapefruit. It was a grapefruit heart with sugar on top that was like bruleed, like on a creme brulee, and that was really good. And I was like, oh shit, I'm Homer.
So I was,
as long as you ate the actual grapefruit meat as well, not just the creme brulee.
So whenever The Simpsons does food parodies, they always age the worst because this is Hogtown. Everybody, we gotta up the stakes every year with what we're eating. And I mean, back in the year 2002, I'm sure it's like you got your apple toaster strudel, you got your blueberry, whatever. Now I'm looking online, I'm like, is there anything close to what the Simpsons are eating? Yes, there is a Hershey's toaster strudel. The filling is chocolate, the pastry is chocolate, and yes, you do put chocolate icing on top.
Good Lord.
Yes.
Wow, that's so much chocolate. Boy, they wouldn't have done even that joke in this episode. Man, that's so much chocolate. Though I don't think yet we have Choco Blasted Baby Aspirin.
No.
We have it yet.
Not yet.
But yes, Marge starts investigating it. She goes to the Quickie Mart where she learns about sugar with free donuts and how everything is full of sugar there. And I like that Hibbert never gets angry, but hearing him go like, damn it! And just slamming it, I was like, wow, shocking thing to hear from old Hibbert there.
Not to go back, but I did love both the gluttony and the waste of Homer dipping the half grapefruit in sugar, sucking on it, and then throwing it away.
Yes, into a pile of uneaten grapefruits. Yes,
it reminded me. I mean, people understand nutrition better over time, and like my grandma was a thin woman, but when it was time to eat like strawberries, yes, we would put sugar on them.
Wow.
And now when I eat them today, I'm like, well, these are already sweet. What were we doing?
Oh yeah, it's like I need honey on these grapes. Like I don't think so. So
honey up your grapes, boy.
So yes, Marge is being her usual nagging self, which is when she learns about the sugar company from Apu.
Apu, everything in this store is overloaded with sugar.
Marge has a point. Sugar is not only fattening, it's also terribly, terribly addictive. Is my carton of pixie sticks in?
No, it hasn't come in yet.
Damn it! When they come in, you call me at this number.
911? I am sorry, but everything in this store, from the honey-glazed cauliflower to the choco-blasted baby aspirin, comes from the mother-loving Sugar Corporation.
Well, I'm going to have a talk with them. Where are their worldwide headquarters located?
Why, right down the street.
That's lucky.
Hey.
So one thing we didn't touch on up front, we had a big discussion up front about, nutrition and public health and even insurance. One thing we didn't touch upon is that this episode is definitely influenced by the Atkins diet craze.
Ah, yes.
And that had been going on since the 70s, but this was one of the peak years. I mean, like my parents, I know they had the Sugar Busters book or whatever, like one of the many Atkins related books on the market, but this was a big time for Atkins. And I misremembered this episode as being the episode about banning trans fats. That would happen 4 years later when Mayor Bloomberg banned all trans fats from New York restaurants. So Marge is ahead of the game here in doing like what would you call, I guess you would call nanny state kind of things.
Or nagging.
Yeah.
Or nagging through the courts.
Using the law to nag.
Yeah.
And also, Bloomberg has like the vice taxes on soda and whatever. And I mean, like, yeah, it's a tax on poor people. And I say, like, my ideal solution is make healthy food more affordable and give people more time to make it.
Yeah, well, that's not going to happen.
It won't happen, no.
Yeah, I mean, you do just sort of have to look at other countries. It's just sort of easy to forget that, it's not just like, oh, it could be different. It's like, no, it is different in other countries. The other countries don't have the same, even though obesity is a problem across the world, it's not just an American thing. Britain is more obese than it used to be and so on. You do sort of have to think, why is it so different here? Is it that Americans are just inherently, more addicted to sugar, sort of biologically? No, of course it's not. You have to look at, like you say, the reasons that people end up eating worse. And I totally agree that we've gone over this, but I don't know why you would sort of harp on the personal choice thing, because at the end of the day, is making fun of people for being fat going to make them not fat? I really I don't think so, because if that was true, people wouldn't be fat by now, because kids get bullied for being fat all the time. So
yeah. And also, like, I mean, for Bloomberg especially, a truly evil, awful little man. Like it's part of like this punitive punishment thing, and also it's like, not to mention too, it is a bit of coastal elitism, I have to say, of like that. Yeah. Me and Bob talked about this before, and so I'm just stealing what Bob said, but it's like, it is like, oh, in all these red states, they're drinking their big sodas. We're not going to let that happen in New York. No, sir. Like, which again, it's like, I mean, yeah, there is in the red state South, certainly there is a lot of obesity issues there, but it's, I don't know. Me and Bob also dug into some of like suing McDonald's as well, which they joke about on the commentary. They're like, oh, when Marge takes it to the sugar company, and we joked that it would be like suing McDonald's, but then that happened. But
yeah, like one of the people who used the law to nag, he got McDonald's to stop cooking everything in beef tallow, which made the food way healthier. If you can imagine McDonald's being worse for you, it was true before 1990.
That person probably saved a bunch of lives by, or at least like lengthened them. you know. Though, Libby, I don't know if you've seen that in the in some of the right-wing reactionary spaces, the beef tallow going out of McDonald's is kind of a sticking point. I don't know if you've seen this.
Interesting. No, I only know about it. I think they mentioned it on Doughboys as like the reason the fries used to taste better, and I'm sure they did taste better in beef tallow, but it's also just like fine with them not in beef tallow. It's like not really that important. But yeah, there's definitely, that's the thing in Britain too, the sort of reactionary. The big one that I can think of in Britain was when we have this candy at Marks and Spencer's, which is like a sort of nicer grocery department store. They sell these like gummy candies called Percy Pig, and they have like a whole line. It's like for children. They have like a whole line of them where it's like Percy Pig and like Colin the Caterpillar and all this stuff, and it's like everybody loves it. It's all very twee and cute. And they used to make the Percy Pigs with pork gelatin, and I guess they changed the recipe so that they would be vegetarian. And like the sort of Sun, Daily Mail, you know, Breitbart, Nexus got really mad about that. You know, they're taking our Percy Pigs away and all that stuff. So yeah, that was our version of that, and it's very stupid because get over it.
I think those McDonald's fries tasted better in 1989 in your memory because you were like younger and happier and like that. It's not the beef tallow, it's your youth you miss.
And you had a developing brain who just wanted base instincts like fat, sugar, pleasure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Although I will say the best fish and chips I ever had were at a place where they would cook them in what we called beef drippings, which I'm sure drippings and tallow are the same. It's just fat, you know. I think that, you know, they probably are really good, but not exactly necessary or worth waging some kind of cultural campaign for. You know, you can go to another restaurant that will serve them if you want them.
Well, and also some of the frying mediums at fast food places use soy, so you know,
well,
you know what that
that's
means.
pretty embarrassing. Yeah.
Anywho, when Marge goes to Mother Loving, well, that's when the big old guest star of the episode, who I always forget is actually done The Simpsons, is in the show. Like, I never remember this.
Blink and you'll miss him in this episode. He's got like 3 scenes.
Even though he's drawn to look exactly like him, so you'd even remember it that way. But yes, here's our big guest star in our next clip.
Excuse me, I'm looking for the head of Mother Loving Sugar.
Yes, I'm Garth Mother Loving.
I'm Marge Simpson. Long-time customer, first-time complainer.
Hey, Marge. I'm not up on the current slang, but did the kids still say, get the hell out of my office?
And I want you to stop putting so much sugar in everything. Or at least warn people that it's so unhealthy.
That'll boost sales. While we're at it, why don't I just change my name back to Hitler?
Don't you have any sense of corporate responsibility? Hey!
Look, lady, if you have a problem, bring it up with your sewing circle, okay?
But we're on hiatus. Everyone's everywhere.
Note to Marge, get out!
I'll play it later.
The Marge stuff is so funny, which is why I'm sad she disappears in the third act once she gets her way.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's Homer has to be a wacky guy in this. Yeah, I mean, Marge episodes never get to be Marge episodes, really. A Marge episode is, at best, 5 minutes of Marge, and then Homer, Captain Wacky, takes it back over. But
we were at peak Stiller saturation. He just met the parents in 2000. Another 2000 movie.
Man.
And also, Jerry Stiller transitioned from Seinfeld to King of Queens. So no matter where you were looking, there was a Stiller in front of you.
So much Stiller. God, man. Yeah, Ben Stiller, I think, is a fine comedy actor, and also like he gave jobs to a lot of my favorite people. Like when he started the Ben Stiller show, he hired Bob Odenkirk and David Cross, and also Andy Dick when that was okay to do. But though honestly, he was committing crimes then too. But hey, and Janine Garofalo, no complaints about her. But I do think that, I gotta say, Ben Stiller's jerk-a-guy character, I never think he's that good at it. Like it's like he's doing an impression of like Will Ferrell playing a jerk boss or something. Like I prefer regular guy Ben Stiller in the comedic role when he's like being dunked on, as opposed to jerk boss Ben Stiller character. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I did think it was kind of a waste of Ben Stiller. I don't know if I've really seen that many Ben Stiller movies. The main things I know Ben Stiller from are his role on Arrested Development, where he's really funny because he's playing a dumb guy, and his brief cameo in The Trip, where he's in Steve Coogan's dream, and both of those he's really funny. I think he absolutely has the capacity to be really funny, and I think it was just like a total waste because he wasn't really, I don't know, he wasn't really like playing a particular, like you say, he's not really a character. It just didn't really land for me.
Yeah, there's no real angle outside the fact that he's obviously evil.
Yeah. I mean, I do like his like, maybe I should change my name back to Hitler.
Yeah. I don't know. That was lazy to me as well because it's like, okay, you just picked the worst thing. You just picked the worst name. You know, I feel like previous Simpsons might have come up with a funny name. You know, like I'm thinking about Mr. Glasscock. You know, like you can do that. You know, you can come up with your own funny bad name. You don't have to just like, oh, Hitler. You know, it's very sort of Family Guy.
I also do think note to self jokes, even by 2002, are like, this is getting old, I guess. But at the very least, they subvert it with him handing Marge a tape, and she's like, I'll listen to it later. Like, but I also, I do like Marge treating her sewing circle like it's a like writer's retreat or something. Like everybody's everywhere. I guess that's an all right line. So yes, Marge reflects on him as being a meanie beanie fofini. And this is also when they find out there's one Oompa Loompa, but he's kept in a cage and he wasn't moving.
I forgot to say my thoughts on Ben Stiller. I'm sure everyone needs to hear them immediately.
Oh, no, please.
But being like a comedy nerd, I was like, oh, Ben Stiller. In the 90s, I was like, Ben Stiller's interesting. He's like directing. He's attached to like darker movies like The Cable Guy. He's also performing. He's got like these lesser known sketch comedy shows like The Ben Stiller Show. It's got his name in it, for Christ's sake. And this is the era in which I was very turned off of Ben Stiller because he's in all of the cringe comedies where he's the guy. I mean, Something About Mary was fine, but that kicked off an entire like decade of like Along Came Polly and all those movies where he's like playing the same hapless wiener in all of them, and everybody loved them. And I'm like, where is the dark Ben Stiller, the child of Hollywood, the little Ben that could? And he just was making a lot of money.
Well, now the last I'd say decade or so, is like he just makes very safe choices, or also though it's he has very well-meaning but kind of, you know, centrist liberal like just charity stuff. It's good and all. I mean, at the time of this recording, he just went over to the Ukraine and did a bunch of stuff with like photo ops with Zelensky, just because there's a general feeling and celebrities at his level of like this isn't getting covered as much as it used to, and we need to keep paying attention to it and all that, which, like, again, just in case people are thinking this is some podcast where we love Vladimir Putin, no, he should not invade that country, and we agree it's bad. He's bad and a bad guy,
just like Ben Stiller.
Yeah but yeah, so Lisa then brings up class action lawsuits, which then, just so it's right in our face, Bart just has to say, you're like Aaron, like Aaron Brockovich, Homer says, and then Bart misconstrues it with a different Julia Roberts movie, Pretty Woman, saying the hooker with a heart of gold. Just to get in our face that, yes, this is Aaron Brockovich, the real one, she actually recorded a deleted cameo in the Simpsons movie because she was going to like sue over the all of the ecological damage, environmental damage that's the start of the Simpsons movie, but they just cut her out of it. They didn't use her, but yes. But Aaron Brockovich was the talk of Hollywood, mainly not for her like actual, you know, cause of helping people, but because it got Julia Roberts finally that Oscar that she'd been wanting to get all this time. She finally won it thanks to playing Aaron Brockovich.
That movie, there was a lot of talk about breasts when that movie came out, correct?
She has quite a strong bustier.
Okay.
I believe in her Oscar acceptance speech, Julia Roberts included thanking her wardrobe department for giving her more prominent breasts than she normally has. I believe that was one of the people she thanked. Yes.
I'm just doing some Googling here. Don't mind me.
Give it a search.
Yeah, no, I see it. Yep. All right. Yeah. No, that's good stuff. Good stuff. Love to see it.
What? See, that's the reverse of the, Charlize Theron, she put on a big ugly nose for Monster or whatever, but meanwhile, like Julie Roberts, she gets that Oscar by revealing her chest more. But anyway, so yeah, honestly, I'm shocked they didn't do boob jokes with her when they do all these Aaron Brockovich lines here.
Hey, we're saving the Marge boob jokes for next season.
Oh, that's right, where they go nuts with them in Large Marge.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there, folks. Calm down, everybody.
Yes, yeah. So in the next scene, well, this is where in-universe, they're kind of doing the behind-the-scenes thing, which is basically the Simpsons have had a problem for 4 years at this point. Who is their lawyer? There's no more Lionel Hutz. They're not going to recast Lionel Hutz. And I think this is the episode where they just make it official of like, you know what? If they're going to have a lawyer, it's Gil. It'll just be Gil. He works as a loser and he could be a lawyer who's bad. Like, so
at this point, he's been on the show for 5 years.
Yeah,
so he's no longer a newer character.
And you know what? In one of Lionel Hutz's final appearances, Gil works for him. Like that was Gil's first appearance. So it's kind of a pass of the torch to Gil. And look, we all love sense. Gil. Yeah. Gil is a great newer Simpsons character in that he's only 23 years old.
25, I think.
Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah,
maybe 24. Let's not count too many numbers here.
But yes, Gil is hired as their lawyer. Then Gil immediately says he will not do any of the work a lawyer will do because it has to be Marge talking to the clients for the next series of jokes.
Pick me! I just passed the bar, see?
Hop in. We want to sue the sugar industry for selling a harmful product.
We have to sign up plaintiffs and take depositions from the townspeople.
Geez, you don't want old Gil going door to door. Oh, I've made too many enemies selling suckless vacuum cleaners and Rick James Bibles.
Don't worry, I'll do the legwork. I'm filing a class action lawsuit against Big Sugar. Would you like to give a deposition?
Sure, I'll join your lawsuit. Sugar's made my Ralphie hyperactive.
I'm happy and angry.
Oh, shoot, I'll sign. Figure them sugar folk owe me for what they done to my cousin, Diabetes.
I'm trying to slim down so I can fit into Mama's coffin. That's my reward.
Jesus.
Marge makes a noise just so we know we're supposed to be disgusted with this character.
The debut of Diabetes, everybody.
Yep, yeah. She made more appearances than I thought she did until I looked at the wiki. Diabetes mean. It's just a bunch of mean jokes about a fat, poor white trash person. But
looking forward to dying.
I mean, the darkness of the joke of trying to slim down so I can fit in Mama's coffin, that's at least good as like a shock laugh I had there. But Diabetes obviously is a joke about, in general, white trash people who are overweight. But I think it's very specifically about the actress Darlene Cates, who was in What's Eating Gilbert Grape.
Yeah.
The very large mother of that movie, who she, despite her character dying very quickly in the movie, spoilers for that movie, sorry, but she lived to 2017 and in 2010 lost 240 pounds.
Hey, you know what? Speaking of Tropic Thunder, Leo DiCaprio in that movie.
Oh, that's right.
What's he doing?
Yeah.
We're not going to say it, but you know what we're saying. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
also,
right.
changing the subject, no proven link between sugar and hyperactivity. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
It's all based on one faulty study done in the 70s. They've done several since. There's no link at all.
How do you like that?
And it's funny. This was happening back in the 90s where we're going to talk about Beavis and Butthead. There's Beavis's alter ego Cornholio. He becomes Cornholio when he eats a lot of sugary things and caffeine. In the second episode, because they got so many letters about there was no proven link, Van Driesen, the teacher, says, that's funny. I read a study that says there was no link between sugar and hyperactivity. So
right.
Within Beavis and Butthead, they're addressing all the complainers.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so if you know people with kids and they're like, my kids are bouncing off the walls after they ate this thing, you say you're a liar. Your kids are monsters.
When I was a kid, the thing that parents would say, or that kids would repeat that their parents had told them, was that blue food coloring was supposedly the thing that caused hyperactivity. I remember other kids saying like, "Oh, did you know it's blue Smarties or like blue M&Ms or whatever that make kids hyperactive." And I think even as a kid, I was like, "No, they fucking don't. That's so stupid."
I think when we were kids in grade school, we would look at the food dyes and like yellow 5 shrinks your balls or something like that. One of those urban legends.
Right, exactly.
Though I identify with, sometimes as a kid, I also felt Ralph's pain of being happy and angry at the same time. That's,
for sure, all the time.
That's just general anxiety, you know.
That's the best feeling. Yeah.
Oh, and yes, Diabetes. She was last seen in the show in season 26. I think they've since retired her. I don't remember seeing her in. There was a very Cletus focused episode recently, and I don't remember seeing Diabetes in it. Well, actually, it was more Brandine.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes.
The Diabetes missing in action.
Also, speaking of Cletus lore, that fancy signature he puts on there, I do believe this is the first time they make his last name Spuckler.
Okay.
This is when he signs it is Cletus Spuckler. That's which now that's everywhere. You can go to, you'll see Cletus Spuckler written all over the place at the themed restaurant for his chicken shack or where he serves chicken thumbs at the Universal Studios Hollywood. Which Libby, since moving there, have you been into Springfield at Universal?
No, I haven't. I haven't been to Universal, although I have thought about it because it's not that far from where I live. The closest in and out, taking into account traffic, is Universal, very near the Universal Studios. So that's why I know where it is, because I've been to In and Out a lot. But yeah, I mean, I feel like I have to go. But again, like being a crotchety comic book guy style nerd about The Simpsons, it might just make me mad.
They get more right than not. I think you'll be like, oh, that's the real thing. That's the real. And hey, if all this sugar talk makes you hungry, you'll love one of their giant donuts. The big pink they sell there is.
All right, you've definitely sold me. Yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, The Simpsons ride is like the least interesting thing about it, but it's still good. It's a good ride. Everybody's heard us talk. Listen to us on Podcast a Ride. We did all our talk about this. But okay, the very funny improv comic guy / comedy writer Sean Clements had this thought that I never forget, which he says every person's third sketch in sketch writing class is, what if candy was drugs? And I think about that every time I see, like, oh, see, the cocaine, sugar is cocaine, but at least it's a specific coke addict joke about a 70s coke addict guy. At least it's that with old Disco Stew. And even on the commentary, they recognize that, like, they wrote a lot of scenes where a character backs out of a room nervously. They really were doing it quite a lot then, which is what Marge does here.
There's a very good one coming up in which Homer catches Apu cheating on his wife, and he like backs away, and then we see him backing down the street and like backing into the bedroom.
Yes,
yeah, it's very good.
That's a good one. Yeah. Yes, we then also have another scene where Marge is guilted, just like in Itchy and Scratchy and Marge. The blame is on the mother for not taking care. Obviously, a mother's job is to cook dinner every night. She can have her dumb little hobbies, but dinner's got to be cooked, and they got to guilt her about that. But I at least like the Homer's guilt trip here in this little clip I've got that starts our next plot device here.
Well, if it isn't the woman who's too busy saving the world to save her own marriage.
What are you talking about? Is that dinner?
It was dinner.
Why didn't you just turn off the oven?
I was hoping we could do that together.
Hello?
Marge Simpson.
Who is this?
I'm an anonymous whistleblower. I worked on a top secret project called Operation Hiving Maven.
Professor Frink?
Oh, what gave me away? Out of curiosity, was it the Huyven or the Maven, or was it the whole Gahivy thing that I do?
So, Professor, tell us about Operation Huyven Maven.
Well, we knew perfectly well it was addictive. Candy was just a sugar delivery system. We thought we were God. Huyven Maven.
Frank, you little weasel. I'll kill you!
May I remind you we're in open court?
I'll kill you too! I'll kill you all!
Mr. Mother-Loving, that could be interpreted as a threat.
I'll kill you while you sleep.
Objection!
I'll allow it.
So, was this the insider stuff here, Libby?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
When he says it was a sugar delivery mechanism, that's Russell Crowe says that the cigarettes were a nicotine delivery mechanism in the movie.
I also love that when he's on the phone there and he gives himself away with Operation Huyven Maven, that then when he's in court and being asked about it, no, it is Operation Huyven Maven.
Yeah, that is good.
I also do love Homer's just that he still eats the garbage after running out of the room. He's still going to eat it, but I was hoping we could do that together. But yeah, Frank, there's some cute stuff with Frank here. Though also this whole bit about threatening to kill everybody in court, that's the Freddie Quimby joke from The Boy Who Knew Too Much.
Especially those of you in the jury, yeah.
Yeah,
I think he had the same lawyer too.
Yes,
the blue-haired lawyer.
Yeah.
New debut of another character. We have Diabetes and also Count Fudula.
Yes, not Count Chocula. Yeah, it's
and apparently he's friends with Mr. Burns and Real.
Yes,
but he can also be out during the day.
Yeah, and Al Jean makes point of saying that it's Dracula who's a member of the Republican Party in Springfield, not Count Fudula. This is a different guy. Though also complicating things even more, when Mr. Burns buys the cereal that looks like him and the old man and the Lisa, it is Count Chocula.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't.
Oh, wow.
I think in between, the Fox lawyer that they work with got a little more in the few years between. They're like, no, you can't just call him Chocula. You got to make up a guy. Like, you got to. And I'm going to say it. I love sugary cereals. If you gave me Cinnamon Toast Crunch right in front of me, I'd eat it and ask for seconds, and that's why I don't buy it anymore. But I never liked Count Chocula. Never. It sucked. It was like there's something about the chocolate didn't taste good. The cereal bit consistency, like it's just like I don't know. I never liked Count Chocula. Bob, I know you are. You've enjoyed a monster cereal here and there.
I bought a box of Monster Mash, which that came out around Halloween. It was a huge box. I bought it because the box looked fun, but I made it about 2/3 of the way in and just told myself I can't do this anymore. Like even eating a few bowls a week, I was never going to make it to the bottom of that box.
That was me with the Dunkin' Donuts like Frosticino cereal or whatever. You got to try it. I mean, at least with cereal, it's only like a few bucks. So if you only eat half the box, it's not the end of the world. But yeah, a lot of misses on that. There hasn't been like a really good new cereal in a long time. I feel like cereal innovation has ended.
They try some new flavors that once you get to Oops All Berries, you just can't. Where do you go from there? You've already got all the berries.
Yeah. Just eat a candy bar.
But yes, Count Fudula has worked for them for 20 of your mortal years, which that's a great line. And also that, yes, he has gingivitis and now he must mash up his victims, which it's like, wait, so Count Fudula, he eats sugar, but also people?
He feeds on the living, yeah.
Yeah, it's complicated, all this Fudula stuff. But so then things aren't looking good for Mother Lovin'.
Sir, this is a house of justice, not a sugar shack. It's Hershey highwaymen like you who made me fat.
Well, Your Honor, the court carries it well.
Silence! I rule in favor of Marge Simpson.
Yay! Oh, I'm so proud of you.
And thanks to Marge Simpson's damning evidence, I hereby ban all sugar products from Springfield forever.
Get in the car.
That's a really dark act break joke.
Yeah.
Homer may beat Marge, it feels like, after this commercial break.
It's very, yes, yeah. So then when we come back from commercial break, here's another of my favorite jokes in the Al Jean era, some of my favorite jokes are when it's just jokes about being a comedy writer, or whether it's saying like...
Well, sorry, you're out of life experience when you've worked on the show for 10 years.
Well, they've used all their life experience in the, almost 300 episodes that precede this, so all they have are jokes about being a comedy writer and pitching jokes. And so here's a flurry of Aaron Brockovich pitches. Or Aaron Brocco pitches? How's that for a joke?
Aaron Brocco pitch.
They're a real Aaron Brocco pitch in this clip.
Good evening. Our top story, Springfield's cake hole has been shut forever. Under what has been dubbed Marge's Law, all forms of sugar are now illegal.
Thank you, Aaron Choco Snitch. That was a group effort.
I was just trying to make this a healthier place to live.
Well, good work, Blue Heron Brocco Witch. Okay, that was mine.
And then they just have a joke that he's just reading off every silly name they pitched for candy names, which my favorite, Big Red Snack Foam. That's the best.
Yeah, that's why I opened with it.
Yeah.
It's funny, like the writers have so many memories of pitching jokes. If you ask like Bill Oakley, oh, whose joke was this? He'll be like, well, George Meyer pitched it, Mike Scully added this, and the room came up with that. You'll learn about every step of the joke.
Dan Graney is one of the top guys of joke deconstructologists because he says, I made up in Biggin, and then David X. Cohen came along with Cromulent to big it up, and then people remember Cromulent more than Embiggen, but he could have never come up with Cromulent if I didn't pitch Embiggen, like stuff like that. Which
God, that sounds exhausting to think about. To have to carry that around for 30 years, it sounds hellish.
Hey, if you almost made up Cromulent or helped inspire Cromulent, I'd remember it too.
And again, reality outpaced satire because the joke is there's a donut cereal, but there currently is one, right?
Yes, yeah.
Libby just mentioned it. Yeah,
Donuts one.
There's,
And it's not good.
Honestly, it was one of the best SNL parody jokes of the '80s of Belushi, John Belushi. The little chocolate donut cereal was another classic one, but which is just real. Yes, and yes. Then it comes to, of course, a music montage of first they play two very obvious ones, and I want to agree, Bob, with your charitable pitch of why they do that, which is that they know it's obvious to use, say, I want candy in this scene, and that part of the joke is this is an obvious song.
Get ready for a lot of that.
Yes, yeah. Algene had he had a music budget, and damn it, he was going to use it.
And now it's bleeding Disney dry. Whenever they pick up these episodes, they have to pay for every song.
You know what? I like that it's costing Disney money. That's a positive there.
They have to pay the Archies every month, probably.
Something that boomers never, ever forgot about was the burning of Beatles records. Like, this has to be the 7th time The Simpsons has referenced burning Beatles records.
Yeah, it started with Krusty Gets Busted, right?
But yes, then they do something we should all be doing these days, burning our Johnny Depp figures in effigy. We need to do that. But and I saw that Chocolat film in theaters, and it was all right, I guess.
Did you melt for him?
No, honestly, I melt for Alfred Molina. I almost called him Dr. Octopus, but
please,
for
Henry.
Molina, yes, yeah, he's a great actor who shouldn't just be known for his wonderful portrayal of Dr. Octopus since the Spider-Man, actually in 2 Spider-Man films. Yeah, but all right. Then comes my favorite joke of the episode because it is mean-spirited and backbiting towards a sponsor. I'll just play the clip here.
That's it, boys. Burn it all.
Even this promotional Johnny Depp from the movie Chocolat?
We melted for him. Now he's gonna do likewise. All right, time to throw in the Butterfingers.
It's not even singed.
Even the fire doesn't want them.
Sugar! Need sugar!
Hey, they're not riding the white horse anymore.
My baby! Where's my baby?
I had to keep in the darkness of Ralph saying, "Where's my baby?"
Yeah,
that's good. But Butterfingers.
Yes. I was looking at the history of this. So maybe there was a lapse in the license. There's discussion about this on the commentary, but after 2001, there wasn't a new Simpsons Butterfinger ad until 2006 or 2007, and the last Butterfinger tie-in was the 2013 contest, the Who Laid a Finger on Bart's Butterfinger contest. And that was the last time they were associated with that brand. I looked up, what is a Butterfinger ad today? And I looked up the latest ad on YouTube. It's about the BFI, the Butterfinger Investigators. And when someone steals your Butterfinger, they get it back. And I thought, who could give a shit about this? Who cares? I look at the views, 54 million views.
What?
Thousands of comments, everyone saying, "It me! I hungry too!" It's people really, I guess it doesn't matter. The brand is so strong.
Country.
Yes.
That's, see, I knew those commercials because I have seen them a couple times on, the only time I watch live television is pro wrestling, and I occasionally see these Butterfinger ads. And the only reason they're memorable to me is because the Butterfinger cops in the commercials, they bring back Bart's catchphrase, but they say it as nobody better lay a finger on your Butterfinger because they're going to protect the Butterfingers from you or for you. So in that stuff, it makes me at least go oh, okay, they're sort of bringing back the Bart stuff, but I had no clue it was doing that well.
Yeah,
these things.
People love these guys, and at the mention of Butterfinger, my tongue instinctively started probing my back molars, just because that's about 5 hours after you eat a Butterfinger, you're just excavating at that point.
Mm-hmm.
looking for treasure.
That's part of the fun. It's,
I will say, though, in Butterfinger's defense, one, they are good. Two, I think they changed the recipe a couple of years ago. I remember Claire Saffitz talking about this on one of her YouTube videos. I think they changed the recipe, and now I think it is slightly less liable to get embedded in your cavities, but also, I don't know, I think that's a good candy bar. Like, I appreciate the joke, obviously, because I love it when they make fun of sponsors, but I'll ride for Butterfinger. That's a damn good candy bar.
Did you know it as the Bart candy bar growing up, or
we didn't have Butterfinger in the UK. We don't really have like peanut butter candy like at all.
Well, that's why I do love that this is them shitting on Butterfingers, because for literally 14 years before this aired, Butterfinger was a sponsor with Simpsons. Like, Bart was in Butterfinger ads before he had a TV show. Like, he was just, they're like, oh, kids love him on these shorts. Wow. We got to sell him in this. Like, it was the shorts team that animated the first Butterfingers commercials. Like, it's how it was probably the first it was probably the biggest paycheck Matt Groening got to that point was probably that Butterfinger ad. And so,
crazy.
Yeah, it's the Crispity Crunchy Butterfinger, or also It's Neato, the first one.
It's Neato, yeah.
But to know, and of course we've heard stories like Bill Oakley confirmed this for us. They had so many free Butterfingers in their office, like because Butterfinger would just send free crates of Butterfingers and Butterfinger BBs to the writer's room. So
Damn.
The writers were intimately aware of Butterfingers, and clearly they were not into Butterfingers after a certain point. Maybe just having access to it every day makes you turn on Butterfingers. Perhaps.
Oh, that would ruin it for you for sure. Yeah. Although it is sort of funny because, like, we were talking earlier about the actual causes of obesity and other than personal responsibility. And I would say that, for example, advertising Butterfingers to children with a popular children's TV cartoon character is maybe something that you might be able to point to instead of just make better choices. It's like, well, maybe don't advertise like sugar drugs to children with cartoon characters would be one change we could make that doesn't involve just yelling at people for making bad choices.
You just want a nanny state.
I do. It's all I want is I want the state to take care of me and to smack me on the bonds when I do something wrong.
Sounds kind of nice. Yeah. No,
absolutely. Yeah.
I also, last thing about Butterfinger, I own one of the original Butterfinger ads that Bill Morrison drew for Bill Morrison, the amazing Simpsons artist. Me and Bob both bought some of his original art when he was selling them. That's sometimes when we feel like splurging our Patreon money, we direct it towards Bill Morrison. And he did this great ad it was on a cover of a package of Butterfingers that if you bought like a 6-pack of them, it also came with a free Simpsons comic book. And so it was Bart. I just loved it because it was a drawing of Bart reading a Simpsons comic, which I was like, oh, that's perfect. I love it.
Dear rat boy.
But yes, even the fire doesn't want them. That's a good line. I still love that. It's a way to explain something that's shitty that even fire doesn't want it. Mm-hmm. But so yes, everybody's going through withdrawal to the point that Homer goes to the Quickie Mart. There's nothing left in there, and he is looking up a pool of blood and vapor rub, which I'd say is a new low for Homer as a food monster in the show, perhaps, that he goes back to lick more of it.
Yes, he looks extra depraved. They draw lines under his eyes when he goes back to the second lick.
He's very desperate, yes. So yes, Bob, as you also said to me beforehand, this then just turns into a caper. They're like, well, how do we end this? Well, better just go to Caper Town for this.
Yeah, it's a choice they would make a lot where it's like, well, Marge is boring. Who wants to hear about her and her problems? Let's have a fun adventure with Homer. When it's like, I want to see maybe Marge is having regrets. Maybe Marge is saying, well, here are things that I miss in my life. I don't know. I feel like we lose track of Marge until she shows up to, confront Homer at the very end when he's got to choose between two different sides. He's in the middle.
Yeah, it comes down to Homer. I'm also sad that Apu is working with the evil company that, like, I don't know, it sells out Apu's character a bit that he's not the good guy. But I guess though often Apu is like a very capitalist dude who is all about like selling expensive things to people, and he needs the cheap sugars to pay his rent to.
I don't know why Mr. Burns is there other than it's Al Jean running this season, and Mike Scully did not include Burns a lot. Hey, I like him there. It's just weird to see Count Fudula, Apu, Burns, Bart, and Homer on a yacht.
Yes, yeah. Garth Motherloving, I feel like he's at the meeting and he should be on the yacht with him too, but maybe also they're like, this guy's not as funny. Let's just have Burns be the head rich guy on the boat. Let's have that. Though that also allows them to go on the Gone Fishing, the yacht previously seen in Mansion Family in season 10.
It's the delicious pun, Gone Fission.
Yes, yeah. My enunciation didn't make the pun obvious there, but
we're not talking about the Joe Pesci Danny Glover movie.
Now that's hilarious too. Yes, but just as funny as that pun. You know what? Also, I compare this to in season 33. There's a very similar episode where Homer accidentally leaves a dog in a hot car and he gets like canceled by people online. And at the end, how does he fix it? He goes on a secret mission with other characters to a secret island. It's actually very similar to this ending. But also to show you that this is like classic episodes where Al Jean was in charge, the Axel F parody is back too. They haven't played it in a long time. The but their own version of it that they don't have to pay to use. It was previously, where it was last heard? Monorail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Which scene?
It was in but yes, so they enter the back door of Lard Lad to learn about this secret plan.
Gentlemen, I have found the final member of our cabal.
Count Fudula? I thought you wanted to get off the stuff.
I'm a monster. Don't look at me.
Homer, we need you to help us smuggle in sugar from south of the border.
Oh, you mean Tennessee?
No, the island of San Glucose. Good times.
Is it really worth risking your lives just for some sugar?
Dessert's on! I steamed some limes!
Godspeed.
It's a very underrated subtle joke where they go into the butt of Lard Lad and probably they can now go down through this winding staircase that's like covered in stonework. Like,
yeah.
Geographically, it makes no sense, but I like how that just cut from that to the next scene. It's just like, oh yeah, I guess that was inside of him somehow.
Right.
You know what, listeners? Don't do your comment. I know it now. It's when Burns and Smithers are hiding the toxic waste at the start of the Monorail episode. That's where the Axel F theme plays. So there we go. I can keep in the bit of me not remembering because I will now have remembered it.
They already made their comments, and now they feel terrible.
But also, I just love Marge screaming like, "I'm steaming limes!" Like, but it also is just the consistent Simpsons joke of healthy food's gross, right? Yuck! It can't taste good.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like, which is it? Healthy food is bad, but the sugary stuff is bad. I mean, it's fine. You can say both, but like, don't yell at me about being fat.
In the Simpsons worlds, everything is bad. That's
exactly.
Well, also, I do think a little of this is married writers in their late 30s, early 40s whose wives are telling them you should lose some weight, and they're mad about that.
Maybe because they spend 10 hours a day eating Butterfinger BBs out of a communal bowl.
Oh, my Simpsons weight is what paid for this house. Yeah,
we talked about it, but like Bill Oakley said, you gain 80 pounds, or you used to gain 80 pounds because I'm repeating myself, but there's nothing to do. You either look in a dictionary or you eat all day before the age of smartphones when you're on a writing staff.
Mike Reese lost 80 pounds when he left The Simpsons. And he's kept it off.
It's funny to think about because my only experience, or I guess not experience, knowledge of what writers' rooms are like in terms of food these days is from a Doughboys episode where, I'm not going to remember the name of the guest, but they had a guest on who wrote on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I think, and they were talking about how they would decide where to order lunch from, and they were always ordering lunch from like Sweet Green and stuff. Like they were getting salads and stuff now, so I feel like it would almost be easier for me to lose weight if I was in a writer's room where I could like order, some kind of salad or something every day, and like if that was paid for, I feel like half the problem of like me not eating healthy is because I don't, like I said earlier, I don't want to get a shitty McDonald's salad. If I'm going to get a salad and it's going to be good, it's got to be like $15, and that's half the problem. So if someone else is paying for it, easy peasy.
The Simpsons writers' room, they were more into Jersey Mike's and Islands. That was their favorite.
I mean, both great.
I think Conan is actually very shamed that one of the few pics of him working on The Simpsons is from Profile they did in 92, where it's like, and here's all the writers eating their big burgers and fries, and they just look like guys
funny.
just covered in grease on their faces.
Yeah,
Bunch of
different time.
greasy writers.
Homer and Bart, they both get matching burglar outfits. Obviously, Lisa's not invited on this trip because it's only Bart and Homer fun here. Lisa's back in Nagtown with Marge. So I also do like that Homer realizes he is in a comedy as he falls 3 times, and by the 3rd time he's like, this is the last time I'm doing this. You know what? Seaweed is gross. I'm with Homer being grossed out by seaweed.
But
It touches your legs.
it's delicious.
Oh, hey, it tastes great, sure. But Homer battling with a toucan, all right, it's okay. But
no bird violence, though, so
You're
I
right.
approve of that.
You're correct. I don't have to play the bird violence jingle. Rarely heard these days, honestly. But yes, this joke's okay here.
Okay, man, here's the sugar. Now you give us the money.
That wasn't part of the deal.
He's right. Who wrote this thing?
That's just funny.
I mean, it is. They're having it both ways, but it's interesting how this caper just is over so quickly with no
He leaves the island
complications.
very fast.
Right. Yeah.
Losing that map doesn't cause any problems anyway. He found the guys very easily and then leaves with all the stuff. Doesn't have any violent problems with them either. He's just like, yep, that wasn't part of the deal. It wasn't.
It wasn't pot.
That's a better joke about deals.
It's a better
That's
joke.
true.
they never mention Homer's previous job as a sugar salesman. You know.
Yeah. Oh,
They're
my
very
God.
close to saying they're bloating things with sugar, the way Homer describes. Bloated it with sugar. So they then travel back, a very easy trip from the Isle of San Glucose, wherever that is, to wherever they are now. This is when they use the Miami Vice parody theme, which they had previously used in the Wiggum spinoff from the Spinoff Showcase.
Okay.
Yeah. Which, if you guys look up the music video for the Miami Vice theme song, is an incredible video because it is Miami Vice is about hot guys and hot girls and all that, but the man who wrote the song is featured in the video, who is an average looking man with a receding hairline, and so it's like it's all these cuts to Miami Vice, and then it's like him playing the keyboard to go like, no, it's me, I'm the guy, and it's like him running on the beach. Like it's a real classic music video. Look it up. To see this man with his average looks. It's also very strange seeing Apu lined up next to Burns and Count Fudula. It's an odd trio.
It's a fun group. They're having a little fun outing here.
And of course, because it's the year 2002, it's jokes about shoving things in your butt. Homer key-stirred his supply of the sugar, which that's probably, butt chugging is very dangerous. I would think a bunch of sugar in your anus also probably not good for you.
You absorb it faster that way.
Well, that's even worse, right? I would think. So, yes. Then Homer, they're cornered. They really loved Al Jean also wrote Simpson Tide, which also involves a lot of boat standoffs. They were really into boat standoffs in this time on The Simpsons. But in this case, Burns betrays Homer and they leave, and this is when Burns is having a stroke, which, it's kind of a lame joke, but I at least like his stroke animation. It's kind of funny. But I do love Homer's line, remember what I told you about running away from our troubles? Yeah, let's do it. And they just leave.
And I like any take on chase tropes. So I forgot how this episode played out, but when they had the pane of glass come out but carry between two ships, I was like, okay, what are they going to do?
Yeah.
And it was great. I really enjoyed it. And then we cut to the woman pushing her baby in a stroller while on a jet ski.
My baby!
They're so good at doing all of these. Like I can think of like 5 other pane of glass jokes that they've done in the past. Probably this is one of the best.
Well, and there's also a police and woman pushing a baby. If Wiggum had done his own police training, then he would have learned that he has to hit the woman with the baby.
That's right. Yeah, that's part of the shooting range test.
There was no blind man to run over.
Right, exactly. Yeah. I also like when Wiggum says, I like to think we've made a difference today. I do love any jokes that are about the cops being bad at their job. Is always good.
Oh yes, yeah. Though you know what, these jokes also outstripped by reality. I feel like in the real life he would have just run over that lady and her baby and then said they didn't. Yeah, and withhold the body cam footage, obviously.
Hey, buddy, they just work here, all right?
Yeah, hey, it was a real risk not running over that baby and the woman.
Right, exactly.
But all right, so Homer then runs back into Ben Stiller, who didn't go on the mission but was waiting at the dock with a forklift. And this is when Homer has to make a choice.
Good work, Simpson. Before I bring the sugar in, I want to see the Oompa Loompa.
He's right over there.
That guy is freaky. Well, here's your sugar.
No, Homer! You'll be condemning this town to a life of obesity and diabetes.
Don't listen to her, Homer.
Oh, they both make such good arguments.
Please, homie, dump the sugar for me.
And that leads to another of my favorite gags in the episode, which is there's no not dump sugar button. It's either dump the sugar or don't press it, but there has to be a button that says obey bad guy. Like, that's such a good, I love that shot.
Well, now we have the meme of a guy who's going to be thinking about pushing two buttons. I'm sorry. I know I took the words right out of your mouth, Henry.
I was wondering if it inspired the comic by Jake Clark. That's who wrote the original. The original comic is "Don't be a dick, be a dick," and the superhero is wiping his brow. It's one of the greatest memes of our time now, that it can be kind of anything. Yeah. I mean, my favorite variation is pushing it with your thumb and both buttons with thumb and pinky together. But which I feel like that's the world we live in now, is that people just press the both buttons at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's like the meme of getting two kinds of soda at once, and each one is labeled something else.
That's a good one too. Yeah. So I wonder, I looked up the meme history on it from the Know Your Meme website, which I'm sure is always correct and very well researched, but they didn't say that. They said Clark was inspired by some things, but the obey bad guy button was not one of them. But when I look at it there, I was like, man, how could it not have been some level of inspiration for that classic comic?
Yeah. But I'm gonna put in my chip as a person annoyed by season 13 and say that it does irritate me that it feels like there are more jokes where it's just a thing written down. It's just like the joke written down, which I feel like is slightly less artful than having to work it into a character saying it. It's like the one that people put, how like people will post stuff, you'll say like, what's your favorite Simpsons bit? And then someone in the replies will reply with something from like season 17. And I'm like, you didn't get it, man. Like, you don't know what you're doing. Just like, don't be so annoying. And a lot of the one that they'll do is like Chuck's seed and feed or whatever. The like Chuck suck and fuck one. And like that one irritates me so much because I don't personally think it's that clever or funny, and it's just things that are just written down. Like, I don't know why. Like, I'm sure there are examples of that from classic Simpsons. There must be tons of examples, but I'm like, you can't just write the joke down and have me read it on the screen. That's not quite good enough.
On the Chuck's joke, I like that they got a suck and fuck joke by the censors. I like that.
It's a show with a history of sign gags,
Absolutely.
and it's drawing from like Mad magazines. Yeah, I mean, there are better ones than this one, but I'm not opposed to the idea of that being the joke.
But yes, Homer. And then also, yes, like you said, Marge loses her own story. Then now it's just Marge begging. It's just a classic, like Marge begs Homer to be a good guy. Like, it's just one of those. But yes, Homer does listen, and he dumps the sugar. But as usual, it doesn't solve the problem. It actually just gives people a bunch of very sugar-rich water, and everybody dives in. And this is when we have our after Ben Stiller's character just slowly backs out of a scene in a forklift. No real comeuppance for him. He just doesn't get his way.
No.
I wonder if they thought he'd come back or something. But
I think they were hoping for it.
Yeah, but yes, we have our sugar-filled ending here.
I guess you just can't use the law to nag. Maybe I should just stop trying to change the world.
No, Marge, I love when you do that. You're a regular Karen Alatovich.
That's the best one.
That's what I told Lisa.
Sugar.
found some pearls. Oh, wait, they're just my teeth. Well, I can still make a necklace out of them.
You know, for real, that's the definition of a treacle cutter. That they have Marge and Homer go like, "Aw," and hug, and they're like, "No, we need to show people Lenny's disgusting toothless jaws," and that's got to be the last shot of the episode.
His mouth is so decayed, his teeth instantly fall out upon hitting the sugar water, and then it's quite a shot to go out on, I'll say.
Yeah, but yes, also the Judge Snyder recognizes like, oh, actually, I really overstepped my boundaries here, and so sugar's back. The end. Like, guess we have to revert back to normalcy now. There can't be a happy ending. I at least like that seemingly the moral of the story was Marge shouldn't try to fix things, and so much like in Itchy and Scratchy and Marge, Homer has to say, no, it's good that you care, even though the world will prevent you from caring, and that your caring is destroyed by the end of our story. It's okay. Yeah. But, lastly, the sugar shark that Mo is like, these sugar sharks are great, and then it bites him back. That's kind of funny. I like just the term sugar shark.
And that Mo thinks that they're a naturally occurring phenomenon, and that a shark biting you is surprising.
Yes, yeah.
It's got many levels on this weird-ass ending.
Sadly, they use the Archie sugar, which is like, but it's already used for the perfect joke in Boy Scouts in the Hood of Homer dancing on the island. That's you can't use it again, but they did.
Yeah, that is a shame. To be reminded of a better joke is always tough. I was sort of surprised at the ending. Maybe I hadn't been paying close enough attention, but I was like, oh, is that it? Like the show's over? Like that whole, because it felt like, it was building up to the caper. The caper was kind of something that should have lasted a lot longer, I guess. But, you're right, because they did just use it as a way to end the show rather than the actual sort of final act that everything had been building towards. It was like, oh yeah, and then they did the thing and then the show's over.
And sugar's back. The end.
Yeah, exactly.
The judge showed up saying they should.
And I guess the moral is like Marge was right, but she's kind of annoying, isn't she?
Yeah.
That's what the show is saying.
They could be a little, these ladies could at least nag a little less when they want to change things. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this episode has a lot of funny jokes, but it is very much a time capsule, and of course it is. It's 20 years old, but it's a time capsule of where we were in terms of knowing about nutrition, where we are in terms of being fat phobic compared to today, and how much just knowledge of diet and nutrition has changed since 2002. And just the idea sugar is bad was kind of, people have been saying that for a long time, but it was kind of reaching the mainstream, and this is when again Atkins was on fire. So yeah, an interesting time capsule, but obviously has not aged very, very well. And I guess it gave us Diet Betty, so
good old Diet Betty,
and Count Fudula. Maybe they could are they both single? Sorry, Libby.
Yeah, they make a good pair.
No, I was just thinking, not to, end on too much of a downer note, but, it's just, you're right. It is kind of a time capsule. And I was thinking at the time, what did I think at the time about something like, fat and sugar? Well, I was, 11 when this came out, so I guess it doesn't really matter. But then I was thinking, when I was 11, I was really worried about being fat. And I was constantly thinking, how can I go on a diet? How can I lose weight as a fucking 11-year-old, and so it's it's just very sad to think about what children watching a show like this might absorb as the message, which is either sugar is bad or whatever, which is true, or fat people are to be mocked, that they are morally failed people who have made bad choices, and aren't I good for having made the good choices, that kind of thing. And I guess I'm coming across as a real bleeding heart lib on this, but I am. So
Was this the year of Shallow Hal 2002? Or was that the previous year?
I think it is. I think it's the same. No, I think it's 03 actually. Maybe.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, well, I think of Jack Black.
2001.
Okay.
There you
all
go.
right. So yeah, they've also got all those great jokes about a fat woman as well.
Outside of Norbit, I felt like that was probably the last joke where it's like, haha, fat lady comedy or whatever.
Oh God, Norbit.
Yeah.
That's why he didn't get that Oscar, man. Eddie Murphy, if he didn't make Norbit, I bet he'd have won.
Norbit won an Oscar for makeup.
Oh, hey.
So Oscar winner. Yeah, there you go.
But thank you so much, Libby, for coming back on the show.
Thank you, Libby. I promise one day you will be on a good episode of the show. But our show is always good.
No, well, that's
you're
the thing.
always
It's fun to talk about even the less good episodes. But I do want to come on when you have to pencil me in for when you do Homer's Triple Bypass next, because that is the healthcare episode. So
Ooh, yes.
That's right. Okay, we totally will.
I may even have written something about it by then. So watch out for that.
I'm sure.
Oh boy,
you have written plenty about Doctorbs on your newsletter. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. The Doctorb Substack. Oh, I should have called it Doctorb. That's so annoying. I never liked the name Sick Note, and now you've given me Doctorb, and I got to go and get a new URL. I write Sick Note. It's a newsletter about healthcare and how bad it is in the United States. And the website is sicknote.co.
And you're also, you're great. You're a great podcast guest as well. I've enjoyed your Doughboys especially. Those are good ones. Which is all this talk about negative on fatty foods. That's the opposite of that on Doughboys.
Yeah, poor Nick and Mitch are really stuck in a hell of their own making. They've got this really successful, funny, good podcast that everybody loves, and to do it, they have to eat all of this food that makes them feel terrible. But unfortunately, it's really good for the rest of us, so they're just going to have to keep doing it forever. And,
as a Doughboys listener, much like with having to, ration out and eat less, fast food than I used to, I also have to listen to it just a little, or I listen to the doubles just as much because they don't talk about food. Mm-hmm. But the food ones, I'm like, I kind of need to listen once a month because I have a problem. If I listen to it, I'm like, well, obviously I got to order Popeyes tonight.
Absolutely. I know.
Talk about it.
And since I moved to LA and we have a car, it's just, it's game over for me. We can actually go to fast food places now that aren't in walking distance. So yeah, it's a real struggle.
But thank you so much again, Libby.
Yes, thank you, Libby.
Anytime.
So thanks again to Libby Watson for being on the show. Please check out Sick Note. And as for us, if you want to check out more of what we do and get these episodes 1 week ahead of time and ad-free, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Sign up for $5 a month. You get just that, but also access to everything behind the $5 paywall. That's over 100 full-length bonus episodes about animated shows you love. And that also includes monthly new episodes of both Talking Futurama and Talk King of the Hill. That is only at the $5 level and only at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and there is a $10 level as well. When you sign up for that, you get access to all of the $5 stuff, of course, but also access to one extremely long, often 6-hour-long podcast once a month if you're a patron of that level or higher. And what is that, Henry?
Bob is talking about the What a Cartoon Movie podcast, where we talk about an animated feature film just as in depth as we do an episode of The Simpsons, which often means going over 6 hours, or at the very least 5 now, I think is our normal length episode. In our most recent episode, you can hear us talk about The Little Mermaid. It's part of our Disney Renaissance Summer. Tons of interesting info in there. At the end of this month, we'll be covering Beauty and the Beast, the perfect follow-up to that one. Before that, we did a very long, over 6-hour podcast about Toy Story 3. We did a 6.5-hour-long podcast about Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and other ones have included Akira, a Goofy movie. I just love starting with those two, but also South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut, End of Evangelion, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Batman Mask of the Phantasm, and a ton more. So please check it all out, the entire back catalog and all that $5 stuff Bob mentioned, when you go to patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
As for me, I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. You can find me on Twitter as Bob Servo, and my other podcast is Retronauts. That's a classic gaming podcast all about old video games. You can find that wherever you find podcasts, or go to patreon.com/Retronauts. Sign up there for 2 full-length bonus episodes every month. And Henry, what about you?
Follow me on Twitter at HENEREYG. That's how you keep up with all the things happening in the Henry Gilbert world. And of course, if you're following me and Bob on Twitter, please follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter, because that is the official Twitter account of this podcast and all our sister podcasts. If you want to stay in the loop when new stuff goes live or when there's news in our world, follow at Talk Simpsons Pod on Twitter. And of course, if you want an easy to explore back catalog of all the free episodes we have ever done of Talking Simpsons and other stuff, go to TalkingSimpsonsPodcast.com.
Thanks so much for listening, folks. We'll see you again next time for Season 3's Lisa's Pony, and we'll see you then.
Oh, sugar, sugar on it, honey. Oh, little sugar on it, baby. Life's so sweet. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, little sugar on it. Oh, yeah. Oh, little sugar on it, honey. Oh, little sugar on it, baby. I'm gonna make you laugh.
Goodbye, cruel world. Hello, ironic twist.